That's how you told them never to go. Tell me to take one of this Cuba Institute, McGurdy. I told my wife when I was tired we stand-up comics, she goes, but you're not funny. You would not come to me open mic night? With tomatoes?
Yes, I have, but not recently. No, I'm not into it. I guess I'm into it.
Well, my thing is, they squeeze you in the texture.
No.
Remember, it's tough back.
I don't like that. That's not even good for us. I bought the Women's Library Campbell series. If that wants to read it, I'll get on there.
Well, good morning and welcome to the January 22nd, 2019, the first workshop of the new year. Happy New Year, everyone. We'll be meeting this morning for about 3 hours, discussing a number of topics. Is there anything generally anyone would like to bring up or discuss on the board before we get started with our presentations? No?
Are you talking about board comments?
Yeah, anything that you...
Well, and I know you guys already know this, but I wanted to bring up the cell phone discussion and under board comments. So
We'll do that. So the first presentation this morning is from our friends at Sarasota Military Academy, and we have a school performance update. Dr. Roca.
Can I just say a couple words? When it's good news, it's always a fun thing. Good morning, school board members, Chairman Goodwin, Superintendent Dr. Bowden. As was pointed out, the first two items on the agenda are the school performance updates for Sarasota Military Academy and Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. As you recall, a couple of years ago, you approved SMA's request to combine and consolidate both the high school and middle school programs into one school to reduce some costs, operating costs, and give them more flexibility to realign their resources for educational programs and for classroom instruction, which they've done. And you asked them to come back. They set some very ambitious goals, and you asked them to come back, and we're very happy that they have improved their performance. So they're going to showcase some of those accomplishments and also give you some information about actions they have in place to continue that forward momentum. And with SSIS, again, they have been successful in improving their grade from a D to a C. And as you recall, required by state statute and state board rule, they had to present to you their school improvement plan, and now they're back to share with you their accomplishments and, again, their plans to keep that upward trend. So with that, I'll start off with SMA. Come on up, guys. Now you can lunge forward.
Just for the board clarification, let's try to get through the presentation if possible and then open up for some general questions, unless there's just something that has to be asked very quickly in the middle of the presentation for clarification, if that's okay.
We have more copies if anybody needs a copy.
Everybody have a copy?
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Christine?
Well, good morning and Happy New Year to each and every one of you, Dr. Bowden and board members. Thank you very much for allowing us to come back and share some time with you and share some of the successes from our goals and a little bit of the implementation and impact check for you and how we're moving forward as well towards our goal of A school for the 2018-2019 school year. But before we begin, I would like to introduce to you the individuals that are participating with us this morning, sitting at the table, but also they're also a resource for us that are sitting in the chairs right now. To my left is SMA Lieutenant Colonel Fred Fout. He is the head of school on the high school campus.
Morning.
To my right is Chairman of the Operating Board of Directors, Mr. Herb Jones. And to his right is SMA Lieutenant Colonel Tom Vera, who is the head of school. You've met him before on the SMA middle school campus. So once again, thank you very much for having us this morning. I would like to begin with page 7 and page 8, which is the implementation and impact check from our 2017-2018 school year. As you can see, we looked at the components. We looked at what our goals were for 2018, the percent scores in math achievement, math learning gains, and math learning lowest gains of 25 percentile. We tried to look at this because, as you know, it was a little difficult. We combined each of our charters. So the information that you're looking at prior to this was a breakdown of the middle school campus and the high school campus, and then, as you can see, a combined total as well. So looking at mathematics, we really focused on mathematics, looking at the progression of math courses from the middle school up to the high school. And we're very proud to look at our goal was 71. Our actual achievement was a 73. For learning gains, 61. Actual goal of a 60, or actual was 65. And our lowest 25 percentile from a 54 to a 65. I see that, we see this as a continuing trend as we have looked at the math progression, looking at our students in the middle school campus and making sure that we place them correctly moving forward and doing what's best for them and pushing them just a little bit harder than they're used to working. Also looking at ELA. Our achievement score, our goal was 64. Our actual was a 65, and we'll go a little bit looking at what happened there. ELA learning gains, 56 to 61, so we were above. And our ELA lowest 25 percentile was a 51 for prep as well, making large learning gains. We attribute that to the iReady that was purchased for the prep campus. We provided that resource for our teachers, and our teachers were able to look at exactly where are the students, make some goals with them, give them some ownership, where did they want to be, and moving forward with the programs. Also the intensive reading program as well, the intensive ELA program. And then looking at our acceleration at the middle school campus. Large gains there. We made a three-point gain. I see that we will continue to make those gains as I spoke about that acceleration, especially as it relates to the math progression at the middle school level. Page 8. Again, at the high school level, as you can see, our math scores, our achievement scores, we made progress in those scores. But unfortunately, as we looked at our ELA scores, we had a significant drop in our ELA scores. I can tell you immediately when those scores came in on the high school campus, we were looking at those scores, analyzing those scores, working with the instructors that were in those classrooms, and looking at course progression with them and course content with them. And I will, I'm just doing a brief overview, and I will allude to our heads of school as they're in the trenches, and they can address a lot of these questions that you may have prior to the end. Again, looking at the science scores, we had a little bit of a drop there, but I will tell you that we did have, as any school goes through, we did have some personnel changes. As you know, sometimes when you have those changes, you have new instructors, they may be first-year teachers, putting mentors in place for them and such. There are some adjustments there as well. And the acceleration, once again, we're looking at that acceleration. I will allude to the head of school, but knowing that there are increased rigorous courses, especially as it relates to the IB program, and also looking at career readiness programs as well, and putting those courses in place this year and continuing into the next year as well. So at this time, do you have any questions as an overview for me? Yes, ma'am. Oh, sorry.
Do you feel that maybe there's a correlation between the middle school that was underperforming and now the high school grades that are below what you expected, or are there other things, or will we be hearing about what those other things are and the changes?
you will be hearing about those, but also we've looked at some of the demographic changes as well. And previously, we also talked in our previous plan about placing one ESOL instructor. We hired one at the middle school campus, which was in our plan, but we decided to go forward and add another instructor at the high school campus as well, so we can better meet that student population needs.
Thank you.
Of course. One thing I do want to point out before we move forward is we have had a significant change in our administration and our leadership, and knowing that I call them the A-team now, we have a very, very strong leadership. We have in the past, but the instructional leaders in place now and moving this academy forward, working together from the prep campus, and that collaboration from the prep campus, all encompassing all the way up to the high school campus.
I have a couple of questions. In terms of career and technical, how many students do you have attending classes at the technical college this year?
At the technical college? Mm-hmm. I don't have those numbers for you. I would have to get those numbers for you.
Any idea what those numbers are?
I do not. I do know that we had a significant number of students who graduated early because of their ability to attend technical college as well. I can get those, approximately 80.
Okay.
Again, you have a great A-team.
I knew there was a large number because I had made some inquiries. Do you think that some of those students being engaged in career now, as opposed to going on perhaps to a four-year college, do you think that might have something to do with some of the numbers that...
I do expect it'll make a significant difference on our career acceleration numbers. As far as they are, of course, held to meeting the requirements for the FSA and all the EOCs as well. So, and they really need to do that before they can start attending STC. So, I feel that that's another motivator, actually, for a lot of our students.
Why do you have better numbers in math than in English language? I usually see it's just the reverse of that. Is there something, and maybe this is something that we can address with the superintendent, but I'm seeing that, you know, are we learning how to teach the new math better? I mean, seriously, are we learning how to be engaged with this? It's been, what, 5 years that we changed math?
Well, certainly if you look historically at the field of education, anytime you change standards,
yes,
performance takes a step back as you adjust to the new standards, and so the more time you have, the more familiar you become. Is that typically a training plan is you start with teachers and you're just learning the standards, and then once you have a mastery of the standards, you get into instructional practices, and when those things come together, then you start to see growth. And so it's pretty common that 3 to 5 years after new standards are implemented that you get a comfort level with them. Would you agree?
Do we have a lot of new teachers?
Yes, we've had a significant overturn in personnel for a variety of reasons. We know a lot of our instructors move out of town for whatever reason. So yes, we are working with that mentor program in place, whether they're a veteran teacher or out of state coming in, but we are making sure that those supports are in place, utilizing the SKIP program as well, and utilizing the PRIDE evaluation system. I want to go back just a little bit, though, to talk about the technical college, because I believe our counselors, I believe our leadership has done a very good job, not only focusing on the college prep, but the career preparatory as well. And I think they've done a phenomenal job on that, and I think we'll continue to see that trend as well from the academy.
Great. It's good stuff. Any other questions? Mrs. Ziegler? I'm Mrs. Ziegler. Mrs. Zucker. Well, it's with a Z, right? I bet we're the only school board in the nation that has 2 school board members with the name starting with Z, right?
Right.
And it's not zebra.
I know this is not on your report, but I'm just curious. What was your graduation rate last year?
So a very good question. We dropped 1.9%, so we had one in the cohort. So we went from a 97 down to 96.1, 94, yeah, something like that. We dropped 1.9%. So we're third behind Pine View and Suncoast.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You talk about those in the technical college. What about those that are in dual enrollment classes? Do you have those numbers?
I can get those for you, but they have dropped, and we saw that as a trend because we introduced the IB program at the high school.
Oh, yeah.
And because of those IB programs, that is pulling from dual enrollment. So we have dropped significantly, but we've seen those students enrolled into the IB courses, whether it's IB DP or IB course takers.
Anything else?
What I would like to say is we do have a great administrative team who have put supports in place as instructional leaders. I know moving forward, it is our goal and will be an A school, falling grades 6 through 12. I would like to ask of this board, it's been very helpful in the past, you've been very helpful, and one question has always come to us, what can we do to assist? So I have a couple of areas that I'm asking of you, and I don't believe it's going to be a surprise to you, as the first one is the data dashboard. We very much love the data dashboard, but we need a little bit of help in professional development, some more assistance with that for administrative teams and with the faculty and staff. That will allow them to drill down for every student to see exactly what their needs are, set goals, and help those students take possession of their goals and know where they need to be. So we're asking, if possible, we'd like some assistance with professional development. And then I'd like this board to know that we are participating, the Academy is participating in February, March, and April in restorative practices. We believe that this is going to be a very proactive approach in the classrooms that will greatly impact the school culture on both of our campuses and will help our students work with one another, head off problems in the beginning, and we have students that are sitting in the seats, sitting in the classrooms, and they are moving forward both socially, emotionally, and academically.
What percentage of your students are coming to you now from Manatee as opposed to Sarasota County?
I'd have to get that number for you, but we do see an increasing trend of our Manatee families coming into the Academy. I'll get that number for you, though. It's significant.
Just curious about that. And I like restorative strategies and restorative justice. In fact, we have a person in the room here today who will remain anonymous at this point, who's very involved with our group called SURE in town. And Dr. Bowden and I have gone to Jacksonville to see some of the things they were doing there, and we're putting some things into practice that we think are very, very helpful for students. So I'm glad to see that happening because I think the more things that we can do to outside the box, if you will, look at those areas that we can influence their students' social and emotional understanding of the way the world works. And I think this really doesn't hold them accountable by their peers as well. I think the better off we are. It's the same principle as teen court, if you will, except it's on a much smaller level. But it's they don't want to be held hostage, shall we say, by their peer group, and they do not want to go into a room sitting with a board or a group that's going to hold them accountable. They will do it, but they don't want to go there again.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think that's a really rewarding thing for schools. How much of a interface do you have between the middle school and the high school? Do we have some
I'm so glad you asked that question, that collaborative piece and the mentoring piece. Actually, it's increased significantly this year. We've provided more opportunities for our instructors to work with one another, look at the course progression, and more importantly, we have a program where we have our prep cadets that are traveling to the high school. They're shadowing the high school cadets, going through the programs with them. And then we have the high school cadets that are traveling to the middle school campus, and they're going through PT, physical training with them. And it's a really great program to build up relationships as they're matriculating up to the high school. But also we have the programs, our junior raters that work with the raters at the high school and such. I feel that we have momentum with that. We're building. It doesn't happen overnight, but I believe that we're building the momentum and building that mentorship as well.
Other questions? Shirley?
We had talked earlier about sitting down and talking about funding issues and having a better understanding of how the legislature does it and how we can work together with the charter schools and our traditional district schools. Do you still want to go forward with that? And
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Superintendent, I'd like to maybe sit down, if it's just the three of us or other boards, or if other board members want to be included in that, but basically it's just an overview of how we're funded and how we can work together.
I agree, and as I always say, being a part of the solution, not the problem.
If we could look at our calendars and get a date together.
Bridget?
I'm glad Shirley brought that up, because before we get to the point where we are scrambling like last year, and I do think that's something the board addressed last year. I think there was a lot of misunderstanding, but I was also not waiting till the end and for the charter schools to, because I think we know, not to relive history, but I think it's relevant, is it's important that I think Sarasota has been a real leader in this area before the legislature came in and required it. But I think that there's a lot of decisions we had to make as a board that put us in a tough spot, and then we were down to the wire. And so for us to continue to have that strong working relationship, thank you for bringing that up, because I want to get ahead of it. And so I would like to be a part of that conversation too, because so I don't know how you want to do that, but I think it would be beneficial as we see things going down the pipe. And we don't know until the end of session, but just from a preparation standpoint too.
Yeah, I know there's requirements to put notice when we're talking. We're not actually taking action except talking about legislative goals, but also, as you discussed last week at a retreat, hearing what that coalition of board members, what they're bringing to the table, because they also are working with the charters so that we can all look together to find those common areas that we can all talk to, and like how the required local effort cut hurts us and those kinds of things.
And we really need community partners to go to Tallahassee and speak for us. I know I just had a conversation with Roxy Jurdy of the Community Foundation. She's offered to go to Tallahassee, talk about summer learning institutes and about the emphasis with career and technical for those parents, which is kind of a universal thing. And we know that we're not funding career and technical enough to have the kind of quality of classes that are required. I mean, you don't have somebody doing a marine engine training without boat motors, and those are pretty expensive. Fortunately, we had a student who was the top in the country and bought us a couple. That bought us a prize of a couple of motors to work on, but that's a real problem. So we'd really like to all be at the table and all be talking about the same thing. Caroline?
And I know it's bad to assume, but I'm assuming that we're talking about meeting with all of the charters.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
In one room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll set the date, and hopefully they can get someone there. I mean, if we can't make sure that everyone is that it's the best date for everyone, we're going to have to set a date, and hopefully as many of them as can appear can appear. I mean, we can't say everyone's going to be there.
No, I know.
We'll invite them all.
You've got one in front of you and one on deck, and the group on deck's nodding their heads in agreement. So just want to get that on record.
Yes.
I would like to add one more thing. I would like to thank this board and Dr. Bowden for inviting the charter schools to participate, number one, in leadership, as I know that it's greatly impacted our administrators, and they've been working on the restorative practices. That's what's been brought to the academy and allows us to move forward with that. So thank you. Also, I'd like to thank you as well for inviting the charter schools to participate in the Teachers of the Year. And we're very, very proud of Todd Brown, who was the Innovator Teacher of the Year, and watch for more on him, because the sky is not even the limit with what he's able to do and how he impacts the academy and our students. So on behalf of the academy, the board of directors, and administration, we thank you very much for that.
Are we at capacity in terms of teachers? Do we have all permanent teachers in place, or do we have some long-term subs?
We have 5 long-term subs, but two of them are long-terms because we're still waiting on their certifications from the Florida Department of Education. Our head of school was listed as a long-term sub because it took 8 months, I believe 8 months. And so it's very frustrating. They're shown as long-term subs, but that's what we are requested. We have to do, so that's why we have those 2.
And we're looking at maybe some changes to the certification exam that's required. If somebody in English language doesn't necessarily, need all the math that's on the exam. And I think people are actually listening to that. Don't you think so, Bridget? I think there's a lot of people who are listening to that in Tallahassee now. That's one thing. And then the other thing that have some local legislators that have just written is that, being able to bring back substitute teachers a month after they retire, which is taken, it's usually a year. And by then they found something else that they love doing. So, we're out of luck. So. Or doing nothing. Yes, that sounds great, doesn't it? Or doing nothing. Yes, that sounds like a wonderful thing. So anything else? But I want to say, how I've always been involved at your school and think that, that there just are many, many wonderful things. It's totally unique. It's something that the community needs. Is there anything else that you need from us or anything that we can do to help you?
6 good numbers for the lottery, I don't know. No, just the continued collaboration, the continued support, recognizing that all children are a part of this community and part of the education process. So we thank you.
Bridget?
I actually hesitate to do this because it's opening up a different discussion. I don't know if it falls somewhat in some of the capital discussions later on, but the security component has come up a lot, and I've had people ask me, I've heard actually really good things, but I just wanted to check in since you're in front of us. How are you guys managing your security mandates with MSD and all of that?
Actually, we're very, very happy working with Sheriff Knight and his team. He chose 2 excellent law enforcement officers for our campuses. I don't think we could have done a better job ourselves picking them, choosing them, and we're very, very happy with that. Okay. Has it impacted our academy and our budget? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, no doubt about it. We've lost a position or 2. We had to cut some positions that were not directly related to instruction. Mm-hmm. But it's working out beautifully. We're very, very happy with our law enforcement, and our cadets love them.
Will you continue with the Sheriff's Department personnel next year?
At this time, that is our plan. Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for coming today. Happy New Year.
I believe I've gotten the correct one on. You can just move up and down with the forward.
It changed from what you guys sent us on Friday, right?
No.
And
I'm not speaking.
You're just gonna navigate.
Okay.
You can navigate with the up and down arrows or the back and forth.
Okay.
Is Larry still the board chair?
Yes, he is.
Give him my best regards. I thought he might be here today.
I was hopeful as well. He, of course, if at all possible, you knew he was.
Well, when we first got grades last year, I was thrilled, and the first two people I called were you and Larry to say, wow, I'm thrilled that you brought your grades up. And so I'm hoping that we're on the mark to go even more forward. So if you wouldn't mind making introductions, then we'll get started right now.
On behalf of the students, here it is. On behalf of the students, the staff, parents, governing board of SSIS, of course, we're very happy to be here this morning. It's good to see you all today. I just want to say to all of you, thank you for your continued support of SSIS and what we are attempting to do in the community. As we've said in years past, we're very honored to be serving some of the neediest in our communities. We're very blessed to be a part of that. As you guys are probably aware that we've increased our socioeconomically disadvantaged population to the third highest in the district. And again, we're very honored to be serving these students. And I can tell you, and I think from what you know of me, our students are very well taken care of. They're very well taken care of. And we're working hard to make sure that we're giving those little guys everything that we have, including a quality education. And to all of you, thank you for the support that you've given to SSIS. Thank you to the support that you've given to all charter schools. I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to Katrina Ward, who is our liaison for charter schools, for her ongoing assistance with SSIS and the other charter schools, and Dr. Natalie Roca, who her ongoing support of Suncoast School for Innovative Studies and other charter schools. I may be wrong for saying this, but I believe that they love us more than anybody. I believe they love us the most. Amen. On that note, please allow me to introduce some very important people that's with us today. The other very important people on campus working today. With the schedule change, some of our support staff who would be presenting today are attending some of your district level workshops and professional development opportunities. And I wish they could be here. That was their desire, but they were unable to. The same with our board president, Larry Ramos. I think that you know that each time that we appear at the county workshops, budget board meetings, he's always present. But we're very happy to have two of our outstanding members with us today, Mr. Brian Yost, board member, and Ms. Pat Ten. And of course, I've already said today, but I want to say publicly, thank you guys again for taking time out of your schedule today to be here and your ongoing support of Suncoast School for Innovative Studies. The other people that I have with us is Carter, who's right there, who is our elementary ESC support staff. And at SSIS, all of us wear many different hats, so I'm not even going to try to get into everything else that she does for the academy. And Mrs. Friedel, who's with us representing our elementary middle school counseling department. And again, so many different hats that she wears. And Dr. Evans, who's with us as well, who does so many things for the academy, including data collection and staff feedback as to how we're performing in certain areas. They're going to be our presenters today, so I don't want to take up too much time. I want to turn this right over to Carter and Evans today, and for the members who are with us, please feel free to respond as need to his questions. Please feel free. At this time, Dr. Evans, I'll turn this right over to you.
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all again. I'm very excited to be here to be talking about how we came from that devastating D, and we're on our way. We're rising to an A. That is our goal. That is what we're working for. So in the presentation, the first slide that you see is just filled with things to remind you of who we are at SSIS, with the population of students that we have, the fact that we have 2 students per grade level in kindergarten to 5th grade, just to remind you of the size of our school. in our middle school having under 200 kids. We had so much data to look at. We were very happy to find out that we wasn't a D. We wanted to know what we did well and what we were going to need to continue to work on, because everyone is focused on the A. So in front of you on that first slide, we were happy to see that with the score of 55%, like we outranked 5 district Title I schools and one non-Title I charter school, and the number of third grade students who received a 3 or higher on FSA. That was a really proud moment for us. Our third grade teachers were ecstatic. We were so excited and so encouraged to get more results, because we really try to get our kids to improve and just get the learning gains as well. So just to get that 55% and know that we're on our way to having more kids proficient, just let us know that we're doing the job we set out to do with helping our kids be able to truly be successful. With a score of 70% proficiency, we outranked 9 out of 10 district Title I schools, and the number of 4th grade students who received a level 3 or higher on the FSA. Again, just excited with our 3rd and 4th. If you guys could have just seen their faces, the 3rd and 4th grade teachers, lots of high fives, lots of hugs, and lots of tears. It's just so emotional because it's been a journey. So we had those things to to keep us excited and encouraged about what we were doing well and what we need to continue to do. Last year, 100% of our Algebra 1 students did pass their EOC. With that teacher in particular, over the last several years, 4 out of the 7, he's had 100% to pass the Algebra 1 EOC, and those other 3 were 90%. So we were very excited about that. You know, a lot of people choose SSIS middle school because of that small class size, and it just reassures the parents, helps to reassure them that their child is getting a really great education, a lot of good attention to make sure they pass that EOC, because math is not everybody's favorite subject. I just love the data part. I love math. I don't know why. In order to increase our students' mastery of science standards in the middle school, and you were here a little later, that's one of our weakest areas. As we looked at the data, science was just glaring at us that we need to do something, especially at our middle school level. So we were able to use some of the UNICEF money we have. First of all, establish a relationship with the MOAT. We wanted to increase the number of hands-on experiences that our students receive. With our population of kids, vocabulary and hands-on experiences is what they are lacking in the most, which creates a big frustration for teachers. If you ask them to do a project or use specific science words, they don't know what it is. So we try to give them as many experiences so that they have a background knowledge. It's really important for science and moving them forward. We renovated the science lab so they could be more, first of all, comfortable. They had some seats. The students did not like those chairs before, so they were very excited to get in new furniture so they could be more comfortable, and which would allow them to have more experiences there. The schedule requires them to go to the lab now once or twice a week, when before it was kind of optional. Now you have to get in there because the teachers understand they have to give those hands-on experiences so that our kids have a chance at being successful. The focus on before and after school tutoring efforts, that's twofold. Our school goes from elementary to middle school. So with our elementary kids, I decided to really use the readworks.org program because they have a lot of science articles. And I thought, what a great way to focus on our reading comprehension, but at the same time, build up vocabulary and everything towards science. We're using IXL, which has a science skill practice component, which the middle school teachers have just fallen in love with because it allows the kids more time to practice specifically on the skill. So that was really excellent.
Wonderful.
What was that .org program you said you were using?
IXL. Oh, readworks.org.
readworks.
And that's a free program that anybody can use. I've worked with that particular nonprofit to specifically work on aligning those lexicons. So I was passionate about the project before, but they have a lot of great articles that we now have online access to. It was a great way to kind of incorporate science into a reading program. We were able to use our data, and I think that comes up a little bit later, but we started our tutoring program earlier with more focused results. We were able to start in October. And because we have that UNICEF grant, we were actually able to start our AR program and use that STAR reading test in conjunction with our iReady test. So I really felt like we got a good grasp on the kids that were not performing well. So that data's getting ready to be updated as STARs. We're doing our second STAR testing this week and I think last week. So we'll have the new wave of kids that are coming into tutoring and knowing where their weak areas are.
You know, of course, with the already, thanks for interjecting, Dr. Evans, excellent points. Of course, our little after-school programs, the for-school programs, which Dr. Evans works directly with, really drill down specifically where our little guys need additional assistance. So no more guesswork outside of the homework assistance. When they come in to get their little homework done, as we do in our support staff, there's specific skills that we're aiming at when they come down.
The second slide is the data. The data based off of our last year's SIP goals, exactly how they were written. Last year's SIP goals was focused on the proficiency and not the learning gains. So what you're seeing in front of you is the data from both of our schools. Reading, the SIP goal was to increase from 45% kids proficient in reading to 52%, and we were able to go to a 47%. It was a 2-point increase, but it was 5 points below our stated goal. We were happy for the increase, but we are very well aware we have a lot of work to do, and we're not shying away from that. In math, the goal was to increase from 33% to 40% of students proficient in math. We were able to increase to 36%, 3-point gain, but 4 points below the goal that is stated in the SIP plan. Our science, we wanted to increase from 28% to 35%, and here it shows 28% stable, no point increase from both campuses and 7 points below the goal. Again, the science just stands out heads or tail of what we need to do and how would we move from a B, we had a C, just about a point away from a B. How is that possible to go to an A? And we had to look at what was those weakest areas. And it's science. If we can do something more in science in particular, we feel like we'll have a good shot at not only keeping a C, but we want to go to a B. We're trying to progress forward. We are striving for excellence. As we strive for excellence, just reiterating the fact we do have our AR program, and it is doing a great job at encouraging our students to read independently and to take the test, and we have a lot of good participation with that. We are using the STAR report to help us build our tutoring groups. We have increased the frequency of our data chats with students and staff in all core subjects on both campuses, so we're constantly trying to get the teachers to use data to drive their instruction. And the hard questions are always getting asked. What are you doing with your bottom 25? Who didn't get this skill? What are we going to do to address it? Who can we invite to tutoring this week? So we look at that in a multi-dimensional way. According to our iReady results, we are scoring about the same as where we were last year, which is encouraging in the thought that we were about a point away from a B. So that means for our teachers, we're doing good, we're moving. We do have some increases. The very first diagnostic, we had more increase than we do for our second diagnostic. So we were very encouraged at the beginning of the year, but we're also looking at making sure we don't repeat our same mistakes. If we are about where we were last year, what can we do now? How can we drill down deeper? How can we encourage our staff and our teachers and our students even more? We had more additional training to increase our hands-on approach in teaching math. All of our teachers are enrolled in the Florida Principal and Teacher Academy, which is an online PD system, which lets our teachers obtain professional development on an at-will basis. And as I read that, I realized that I skipped a whole slide of striving for excellence, but we are totally striving for excellence, so those things were important too. So I just quickly go through it because you have it in front of you. We have added more incentive programs to encourage our students to come to school. That was one of our weak areas with getting our severe to moderate cases. We were able to improve improved that with the incentive programs we have. We've increased the frequency of when we recognize those students and how we recognize those students and classes to encourage them to come to school. One of our biggest changes this year in terms of parental support is the establishment of a PTO. Our PTO is so energized and they are so excited, and they just the biggest cheerleaders in the world. But it's been so amazing to bridge that gap, the communication gap. We had a Donuts for Dad event, which we haven't done, and I can't tell you, we didn't have any parking spaces. We were totally not ready for the amount of people that came. We were all putting tables in the hallway. I was just running around trying to serve everybody, but it was such an outpouring of love. Really some of my favorite, just one little a sound bite. It was a parent. She was standing outside with her daughter, and she was in tears. She said, "My daughter, she's not sure if I can go in. She didn't speak a lot of English, and luckily I spoke enough Spanish to understand. But she's like, her father had been deported. She doesn't know. She wants to go, but her dad's not here." And I said, "I don't know how much English you understand, but you are welcome and encouraged to go get the donut, go be with everybody. You're not the only female that's in there. This is a family event." And it just really helped to solidify those family bonds. So amazing events like that. Over 125 people showed up for the Christmas parade. Our parents are really starting to become more involved and more vocal. I think that's going to go a long way with getting the buy-in that we need, because in terms of our population, we really need to have more times with the kids. We really need to increase how much time they're on our campus, which is why we have a before and after school program. And the more we can connect with those parents, the more they're going to trust us to keep their children and to continue to teach their children. So it's amazing to watch that unfold. And with our Unity grant, we were able to hire additional math help at the middle school level. And we have so many new products for our kids to be able to touch in terms of STEM and science and math. And the teachers have been enthusiastically using them from kindergarten, take it back, from pre-kindergarten all the way to middle school. VPK, don't forget I can't, because I can see the little kid kicking and screaming because they want to build that bridge. But from VPK all the way to middle school, we really are trying to increase those hands-on opportunities. So I know that concludes the PowerPoint presentation of all of this. But I wanted to, again, I'm looking forward to your questions today, but I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for bringing us in last year. You know, it's not, candid collaboration is something I believe in from No Excuses University, and you guys are not afraid. You don't shy away from accountability. And that's something that we were really trying to get our staff to do as well. We are all accountable for these students. Let's all do our part. Thank you.
Evans. Wonderful presentation. Excellent.
Well, it's certainly a greater presentation than last year. I was just saying, look how you have evolved. I mean, really, look how you have evolved since last year, and it's wonderful. Eric?
Yeah, anybody who's Dr. Volker or Mrs. Ward's favorite, you know, deserves accolades in my book. But I just want to get to the point about, you know, the outpouring of love. And I think the outpouring of love is because you guys give love and you guys show love, and I really do appreciate that. I mean, a lot of people, you know, knock charter schools because they siphon off the best, but you guys didn't say that. You guys said, give us your most challenged kids, give us your neatest ones, and you guys have risen to that occasion. And I just wanted to highlight like a little small example. I saw you last at a basketball game, and you were you didn't win, but
I was out of control. That was a good game.
It was a good game. It was a good game, but it was what, 30, 40 miles from here? I mean, it was pretty far from here. And the fact that those girls looked up in the stands and saw that you were there supporting them, you were there to show them, you know, I'm here for you. So it's not just in the classroom, the academics, but it transcends that. When, you know, kids are outside with the mom, their father's been deported, that someone's going to go out there and help them. And as you know, the people you serve, they're the challenge and the neediest, and those needs don't, you know, end at the classroom door. And the fact that you guys are willing to step up and address them, you know, I think makes all the difference. And I think you guys continue that. I think hopefully nobody wants you guys to become an A more than I do. So keep up the good work. Thank you.
Robbins, I really thank you for those kind words right there. Thank you.
Who was playing basketball?
What was the name of that? It was
St. Stephen's. It was St. Stephen's in his school.
It was a great.
It was a great game. Those girls, they didn't give an inch. I mean, they were. Your school was. I mean, to go watch their charter school play basketball was a feat.
We got a pretty good sports program.
Yeah, they got a pretty good sports program.
We like that. Caroline?
A little off what you have here, but what is your absentee rate?
I'm glad that you spoke of that. We did not bring the numbers, but one of the things here, one of the initiatives, particularly, am I on right there? One of the things, particularly at our middle school, which the data showed last year, that our middle school attendance was significantly higher than the elementary campus. So we took a look at our building-wide behavioral system, which is another story that we implemented many, many years ago. We wanted to make sure that every student was treated with quality and that teachers had a building-wide plan to assist them in how they handle behaviors in school, in classes with kids, which is very innovative. This year what we did is took a look at our absentee rates as it relates to suspensions and how we were handling discipline. I definitely want to get you that information because there has been significant... You know, we talked about that. I didn't know if you brought it with you.
She has got it.
Yes.
The data dashboard, come on. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And,
awesome.
Amen. But what we have done here, we felt that some of the reasons for student suspension, and that sometimes, you know, I got to step in, not trying to micromanage, but do what's best. And so we redid that. And looking at our handbook, and it has greatly reduced our student suspensions and held more accountability for our students and teachers as how we have restructured our classroom hourly schedules for our teachers. For example, we have implemented a 7-hour day, giving teachers 2 planning times. One is for the PLC meetings and support of your peers. The other for students who are asked to leave class because we have a strict code of conduct for who leaves class, who has to go down to our dean's office for the day. That is that class period where that student comes back to make sure he is accountable for that teacher in that open hour, reducing the number of student-teacher ratio, and again, making the student accountable for the work they miss in class. And again, reducing the number of times that those students are off campus. You had that information. There were some things we didn't put into our presentation today because we were limited to the slides, but we do have that. I'm glad you have that today.
What is it?
As far as our attendance compared to last year, based on the attendance dashboard, our moderate to severe chronic attendance has dropped about 10% from last year. So that's big for us.
That's great.
Yeah. And we have implemented at the elementary school monthly attendance incentives per classroom, so the winning classroom every month.
That's wonderful.
The kids have really loved that. So
that's wonderful. And they have the little data board of how every classroom is doing. And of course, if you know some of the teachers at SSIS, they're competitive in anything. So to see how their classes are doing, you know, they're helping us making sure the parents are getting their kids to school.
So your suspension is down.
Yes.
What is your not sure. What is your absentee rate? Your suspension's down. So what is your absentee rate?
Oh, I apologize. That was the number for the absentee. It's down 10%. And then our absentee rate for the year, we have 6 so far, whereas last year at this point, this is for K through 8. Last year at this point, we had 25.
Wow.
We've gone down.
Wow.
Yes, so I apologize for the confusion. So attendance, moderate and chronic and severe chronic have gone down 10% since last year. And then as far as our suspensions, they have gone from 25 to 6.
Wow.
That's great.
Significant.
Shirley?
I have a few questions.
Go ahead.
Short ones.
Ask them.
Your transportation.
Yes.
How do you provide transportation?
We have an independent provider.
You have a provider.
Yes, we do.
Transport to your
Yes, ma'am.
schools. What's your outreach to get new students in the area? Do you reach out to the other schools? We're looking at our we've got these set-ins. Bus kids across town.
Yes.
and all of that.
Yes.
And we're looking at ways to make it easier for the parents to choose the schools.
Yes.
and I don't know how you reach out to get new students.
We have a multi-face marketing strategy. We are on Facebook. We have the multi-mailers. But one of the biggest thing we know,
parent to parent.
All over the roads.
Yeah. If you guys have seen our signs, I'm sure.
Okay.
But the community knows who SSI is. We do it all. We do it all.
Do you participate in the summer learning academies?
We not with the district, but we have our own.
Okay, I don't know if it's available to them.
It's not. Well, we have not invested in that,
okay.
so it's mainly for county schools.
Some other ways, online donors choose. I know I've helped. I think Wilkinson a couple times. I haven't seen any from your school yet, but maybe I'm not on that wavelength. The Education Foundation has those grants.
Gosh.
And is your school participating in the Embracing Our Differences, the free programs you're getting them down there?
Oh my gosh. We're very thankful for those programs. We think as much as exposure our kids can get to the community and the enrichment that Sarasota has, the better they are. It adds to their little lifelong knowledge. And the Community Foundation, wow. What an organization. I can't tell you how many of our teachers have received grants for classroom initiatives. I hope that the people are listening from the foundation today. They have really blessed our program.
I wanted to make sure that everything that's available to our the traditional public schools that you are also getting in on. That Florida Principal and Teacher Academy, not to you, but to our superintendent. Do our teachers and principals participate in that? I hadn't heard of that before.
We have 2 principals.
So do the teachers know about it? Can the teachers sign up for that? It's a free program through the state?
We've had to pay.
We've had
$125.
You all pay for it.
It's $125 per participant for the year for those resources.
You're talking about Dantzler? Which one are
I really
you
feel, is it the charter school consortium?
It's the
Rita's
charter
not
school
here.
consortium that we also pay
I think this is a charter school.
I think it's the charter school
initiative.
It is.
Charter school initiative?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it's.
I don't know if
Charter schools, the charter school consortium has their own offerings for charter schools.
Right.
Yes,
and actually, I remember coming to a meeting here and you guys asked us about that,
Yes,
which
I
forced
did.
us to dive deeper and find a resource that was right there readily available. So
Yes.
maybe we could look at that resource to see if it would be something that our principals and teachers could use. I mean, anything that's out there, and it's $125 per participant per year?
For the year. And it's amazing because it is a lot of online PD, but as a professional, I know what I feel like I'm weakest in, and it may not fit the entire school's PD plan. I'm able to choose right then and there. The principal can approve it, and I can do it on my own time.
But I would think that's something that either we could provide for those teachers who want it, or maybe even get somebody else to provide. But I guess the teacher would have to come forward and say that they'd be interested. And if we could maybe look at that, I don't know. Perhaps.
And we do want to say, just to, I'd be remiss if I did not, these are great opportunities for our staff, but we also want to extend great thank yous to Sarasota County District also for the professional development opportunities that you also provide for us.
And I also want to say congratulations for improving your score. We had some fallback on our schools this year, so hopefully you won't outrank us so much next year. That we are working on improving our scores for next year too. So I'm glad that you fought that. You worked against the grain and you improved your scores where we went down a little bit. And
yeah, but you guys are still doing pretty well, though.
Yeah,
yes.
we are.
Pretty well.
And
well, we don't want to do pretty
better.
well. We want to do great.
Amen.
Do amazing.
Amen.
Amazing.
Yeah. Amen.
Bridget.
Well, congratulations. What I was doing the read ahead before this meeting, I read through and something really stood out to me was your honesty about where you said this is where we increased, but this is also where we didn't. And for me, that speaks volumes on, because we see a lot of you don't want to dwell on the negative, but you also need to be honest and face it. And so we do see a lot of presentations, and for better or for worse, sometimes the glaring misses aren't in there. And so that struck me as something that I took seriously, because I think it was painful, for lack of a better term, last year. And so I really appreciate you being honest about saying, okay, this is where we succeeded, but we still have a ways to go. And I think the continued collaboration and support is still strong here. But I do want to commend you for that, because I think that speaks volumes about who you guys are and the culture that you're doing, saying, listen, this is where we need to go. The other question I had on science, and I appreciate you kind of honing in on that, was, so talk to me about your science instructors. I had 3 questions basically on the teacher retention, how many vacancies you have, and then if science is such a miss, is there an issue from an instructional standpoint? Is there turnover, or is it something else?
You want to? Okay. Because the science scores are combined, we were actually able to narrow that down further. So, for example, our elementary science teachers were able to score 34%, 34 or 36, depending on which model you look at. But our middle school scored a 24, and it brought that average down. So there is a big focus with our middle school science teachers. We did have a teacher turnover for the last 2 years at the middle school. There are 2 science teachers, and for one particular class, they constantly move. But the one that teaches the 8th grade science, where we have the actual test, she's been there, but she's had different people that she's had to try to mentor and train. So what we did was have some candid collaborations with data and focus on how are you going to map out your year. Yes, I understand you have a new coworker, but what are we going to do to make sure that we keep our students focused on what needs to happen? And we kind of refocus her. We want to make sure that she knew where she needed to take these kids. So direct data chats with our middle school. For our elementary, we do have another 5th grade teacher, because those are 2 5th grade teachers. One 5th grade teacher became our ESE liaison and navigating the PowerPoint. And we do have a new 5th grade teacher, returning teacher this year. But the biggest focus was letting those 5th grade teachers know we got to increase the hands-on opportunities, which is what we focus on with our UNICEF grant. And our 5th grade teacher, Miss Loria in particular, she really secured a good amount of community grants to help increase the hands-on learning experiences with 5th grade. They're going out on different excursions. They've gotten grants from Lowe's. She's really digging down and making sure that the kids have that background knowledge. And I had the opportunity to work with her, even with trying to get kids ready for science fair and seeing how much work we had to do. So there's been an increased awareness, increased data chats, and we're really hoping that our focus on vocabulary, our focus on hands-on experiences, and staying focused on the ultimate goal with our middle school teacher, I'm expecting to see some increase.
Okay, no, good points. And the last question I have, that was it, was on security. Just wanted, since you guys are here, it's a good opportunity to hear kind of what you guys are doing from the security.
Trained through Sheriff Knight, went through the summer program. We have 2 guardians.
Perfect, thank you. That's all.
Dr. Bowden.
So this time last year, I was pretty strong in my words. So I want to make sure that I want to make sure I'm equally strong in my words this year. Great job. Great job. When I look at your numbers don't lie. You're headed in the right direction. And so I guess my word of caution is, as I said to you last year, the work that you've chosen to do is hard.
Yes.
You chose to do it with a difficult population.
Yes.
Due to the size and scale of your school. I mean, individual students represent 2 and 3 percentage points of their grade level.
Amen.
So, one student moves the bar 3 percentage points, where in a larger system like ours, they represent tenths of a point. And so it really is about connection on the individual level. Talk to me about 3rd and 4th grade. Last year when we talked, you had some staffing changes.
Yes, we did.
And so you lose one teacher, that's half your 3rd grade team. Did those 3rd and 4th grade teams stay intact
they
this year?
They stayed the same, and they are. And their scores from this year, it makes them more excited to stay again.
Yep.
Even if they were considering, so it's like, no, we're doing great, it's working, let's keep going. Our staff is so energized. They're willing to take those risks and to try different things, but they see the results. They see the fruits of their efforts, and everybody's just so focused on where we want to be, and we have those hard conversations all the time. Candid collaboration is a very intense motivator. It doesn't allow you to wiggle your way out of anything, and the more that we do that, the better we are for our kids.
I completely agree.
But with the PTO especially working with us, I really feel like for our students, they feel the love all around. It's not my mom cares about me and I know this teacher cares about me. We're all at those meetings until 6 and 7:30 at night. They know we care about them. So I think it's gonna speak volumes in our grade this year.
So the only other comment I have is regarding Algebra 1. 100% pass rate, and so my challenge to you is to get more kids into Algebra 1. It'll help you on middle school acceleration.
Amen.
But Algebra 1 in 8th grade really has become the new standard, and that'll get them ready for high school. And so I know it's mid-year. It's not a lot you can do this year, but I know you're already building schedules for next year, and I challenge you to put as many kids as you can into Algebra 1. So I'd love to talk to you next year about a 100% pass rate, but how many more kids have had that experience?
Absolutely.
All right.
Now I got to share this, and again, I hope he's listening. We love Mr. Valit. Mr. Valit was hired on when I first came to SSIS, and as Dr. Evans said, Mr. Valit has put up some of the best numbers throughout the district on a consistent basis. And due to family concerns, his father, with hardship, he is leaving SSIS today, this evening, headed to New Jersey. That's a tough one for all of us. We pray for his family, of course, but he is going to be a hard one to follow up. Mr. Valit does a good job, and I thank you for recognizing his accomplishments with us.
Jane?
Caroline?
I'd like to congratulate you because I know I was very hard on you last year.
You should have been.
But I'd also like to compliment you on the fact that you are doing science through reading.
Yes.
Because the integration of subjects is so important, and I don't think we do enough of it.
I don't either.
I mean, as a district,
Amen.
I don't think we do enough of it. There's no such thing. There's no need just to teach science and then teach reading over here separate.
Right.
They're
together.
It's reading science.
Amen.
What's the difference?
No.
The same with art integration. It's all to be combined. So credit for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind comments.
I think it's that difference between reading to learn and learning to read.
It is. It is.
Well, any other questions? I think this is wonderful. And Dr. Evans, you have another comment?
I had a question. Ms. Brown brought up a point. Are charter schools included in the summer learning institutes that you guys have? I've had an opportunity to participate, but that's because of a nonprofit that I started, Messi Camp, and I was able to be on campuses. So when Mr. Evans said we have our own, I was designing it based off of our data. We'll look for Title I funds to do that. Is that something that's for charter schools or no?
And so we receive some state funds, but the great majority of summer learning comes through our general fund. We can certainly share with you how we've done it. It's a combination of general fund. It's a combination of Title I dollars, but there is some state dollars that we're happy to talk to you about. We're going back to the legislature to talk about further expansion of that. And so if you have an interest in going into summer learning, we'd love to include a line item so that they have a clear understanding that if they up our $500,000 to $1 million, that we're going to give 75, 100,000 of that to you on an individual basis. And so it doesn't hurt to ask. And so if you have an interest to move strongly into summer learning, we have an ask in front of the legislature. We'll make sure it's included. We can talk about strategies to make sure we're asking for the right amount.
That would help us significantly. We have our Title I dollars, and Dr. Evans, they put on a wonderful summer program, but again, trying to, with the other support programs that we use Title I dollars for, personnel, of course, those dollars are limited. And Dr. Bowman and the county board members, to include us in that grant opportunity would be significant for us.
Plus, we've done this for 5 years, and we know what works best.
Exactly.
We start with kids coming into kindergarten, and we have the numbers that state that this really does work.
It's doing a great job because it does what needs to happen in a Title I school, which is decrease the amount of time they're away from school.
What is your free and reduced lunch rate?
We're 97. We're the third highest.
You need to put that down on everything that you present. That's the first thing that people want to know and people ask, and it's really vitally important. So always, highlight that because you're doing this in spite of some big challenges that these students have. You have 200 that go on to middle school, correct?
We about 100. About 100. To rotate over, yes.
So where do the kids that leave you at the end of your primary education, 5th grade, where do they go?
We have about over half of those guys would come over to us, but then the other ones move out into different parts of the county, back to your programs. And one of the things that we're seeing this year, and we think it's probably because of the property value here in Sarasota, a number of our local guys are moving south of us and north, because many of them, of course, are rental people.
Well, thank you very much for being here today. Wonderful presentation. We're looking to hear great things from you this summer when we finally get our scores. But keep up the good work.
Amen. I'd like to just close in by saying once again to all of you, the young lady from the military academy said it best, just for sitting down with us to have some conversation about the funding that are associated with charter schools. You guys already know, as it relates to other counties, based on informal information that I have, that you do so much for the charter schools here, and just consider us in those funding conversations as we move forward. We thank you. We thank you. We just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mrs. Brown.
Not directed to you, but in general, on one of the news shows last week, I think I saw, and they were talking about the importance of pre-K and the difference between the students who have it and who don't. And the one, she said her one child had pre-K and was getting all A's, and then the younger one didn't get pre-K and was struggling. But they were showing how the pre-K lasts for years. You can see the outcomes for these students through all of elementary and into high school, a big difference on those who have pre-K. So again, when we're talking to our legislators, let's talk about having, instead of, making it perhaps mandatory for pre-K, and increasing the funding so that we have adequate,
that's a big
pre-K program.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it's a 3-hour program, and that's what it's funded for, and it really is underfunded. But I will say this, the problem we've got is that many parents don't think it is something that is mandatory attendance. So they may come a day or two, and then they may not. So, we have some issues with that as well, of they're just not getting there every day. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add something? And we've talked about that, but and I don't know from the summer learning appropriations what that would look like. But I would be honest, I really think that would add, appropriations are tough. We were really lucky last year to be, one of 2 that got across. However, I think we do, from the state level, stand out as being innovators on the choice element, that we're not waiting for being required. If we look at that, and I don't know if that would change our appropriations or not, but I think that would be a huge, that would allow it to bubble up and rise above many, many other asks. So I think that's something definitely to look at.
I'd like to make one comment. It's not related to the presentation, but I figured, I'm here now. So I come here because not only do I enjoy the airtime, I also learned from it. And we've just stated that we do share a lot with our charter schools. I wanted you to know that they are invited to every program that we offer, every training. We did do a nice hour-and-a-half training on the data dashboard for the principals. And as a matter of fact, Wednesday, we're meeting again to share other kinds of resources that we have. But I will be sure to ask them if there's maybe more that we need to do. And as you know, with Dr. Cantalupo, with the data dashboard, we're rolling out a lot of tutorials, and every time we add more I was going to say bells and whistles, but it's not as simple as that. So just be assured. And as was mentioned earlier, the Charter School Consortium is a pretty powerful organization. They have a lot of tools that are almost free for them. So I think Katrina and I can do a better job maybe making sure that they're aware of it. Most of them are members, but we found out last year when we were helping SSIS that PD tool was there for hardly any money at all, and is pretty fabulous. So we do continue to offer them, is like you said, the Teacher of the Year this year, the Leadership Academy, and as much as we can, because we know that it's all, we're all the same community.
Eric?
I just want to make sure people know that the AP2 scores are on the dashboard now, so people want to go out and see how they're doing, and so I just want to let people know that. And who's your favorite again? Who's your favorite male
so
school board
many favorites
member?
Depending on the topic. Let's put it that way.
Your favorite male school board member?
Shirley.
You're my favorite school board male member. Yes. Thank you.
Do you have any update on how the Dreamers Academy, are they going to be opening in the fall? And if we invite the other, make sure that we invite them also to that meeting where we're going to be talking about?
Absolutely. We're in the process of negotiating their charter. They, because, we gave them a charter, draft charter, and they came back, as a matter of fact, last week. So we do have to negotiate some of the terms and move forward, but they're still planning on opening in the fall. They're doing their PR campaign now. They've requested the list of, directory information for them to send out their brochures, so they're right on schedule.
Thank you. Our friend noted that they received invitations to two of the charter middle schools invited this student, and they don't know if they only invited students who were high performing or if they invite all fifth graders to come and look at their schools, and wanted to know if we do something like that for our middle schools. And I see we're doing something at the technical colleges.
Tonight and tomorrow night. Tonight at the main campus, tomorrow night down in Northport, we have a school showcase. It's not just our programs, it's all programs in the county, so our charter school partners will be there to highlight their programs. But yes, there are varied marketing campaigns. I have an 8th grade son, so he's making the transition to high school, so you get to see a little sampling of how the high schools market. The postcards have started to arrive in the mailbox and the invitations to open house, and so
these are our traditional public schools are sending out these cards too, correct?
He's had a school visit. Riverview has been on campus at McIntosh talking about IB. His application is in.
And the middle schools contact our fifth graders too?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I?
Along that line, Colin told me that he's been going to all of the middle schools from Booker High School, recruiting. And he's putting on this whole show that he does with his saxophone.
Grandson?
My grandson, yeah. So he's recruiting heavily for Booker High School.
He wears a lot of hats.
Bridget?
No, I just want to get one more. I just want to give kudos because this is not that you don't see at all in other districts, that they'll include all of their potential options of schools for their students and their fairs. And I think that's a huge, and I know that's new, so thank you.
Second year.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, moving right along, we're about 15 minutes over our time, and brought to us for the next presentation.
No pressure.
We will adhere. Away when you talked last time you were here, you started talking about soda consumption.
No, we will adhere to the agenda.
Sonia Figueroa Alberts is going to introduce everyone for us, but we're going to talk about SHINE, School Health is Needed in Every School. And for those of you that don't know, I have always loved the idea of this program, so I'm particularly happy to see you all sitting here today.
So good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. Here today we have some of our members that are our leaders and administrators of a long partnership between the Department of Health and the school district. And to my left is Karen McCormick. She's the supervisor of health from the department. And Christine Griffith, not only does she oversees school health, but she also oversees for the Department of Health, infectious disease, and other areas of the Department of Health. Susie DuBose, our supervisor for health for the district. And I want to acknowledge Mr. Chuck Henry. He's our Department of Health administrator. And this has been a long partnership that we have integrated in enhancing the services for school health in our school district. So they have worked very hard in having a proposal for your review and consideration about possibilities of not only, like you said, the quality of services that we provide, but taking it to 2 or 3 notch up with your review and consideration as this proposal. Susie will take us through this, and let's listen, and we'll adhere to your agenda. It's very busy.
Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes.
Yeah.
So, members of the board, superintendent, thank you for the opportunity to discuss the SHINES proposal. SHINES is actually an acronym for School Health is Needed in Every School. It's a district initiative through the School Health Advisory Committee, the SHAC committee. And as Sonia explained, Karen and Chris Griffith and I sit on this subcommittee. What I'd like to share, the proposal's objective is to put a nursing license in every district school and facilitate student success in the learning environment. So if I may, a few key points that are made in your proposal that I'd like to review. Today's students come to school with life-threatening allergies and asthma, diabetes, seizure disorders, cardiac conditions, cancer, mental health, and behavioral issues. on any given day, and sometimes every day, we're providing insulin administration, complex medication administration, catheter care, trach suctioning, you name it. It's all being done in the school health room. So school nurses are the front line to ensure that these skills are delivered professionally, skillfully, and correctly. A full-time nurse in every district school could, for minimum annual expenditure, positively impact student health, increase attendance, decrease achievement gaps, decrease liability for health-related issues, and provide an additional layer of support to teachers, counselors, and administrators. So if you will, I'd like you to open your proposal to the yellow tab, and we'll go right to the pictorial of the proposal. If you did have an opportunity to look at the current map, which was the page prior, you did see that it was somewhat more isolated. Not impossible, but harder to work as a team. So I really like this visual effect that shows you, again, for minimum annual impact, we have an RN in every high school, we have an RN in every middle school, and they provide oversight to LPNs that would be in the elementary schools. You will see a few RNs in elementary schools that are known as a cluster site or a medically fragile site, maybe a behavioral site. The ratio that we came from prior to the proposal, or we're coming from, is one nurse to about 1,700 students. Under this proposal, it's 1 per 950 students. So again, you have a license in every school. The RNs that are providing the oversight roam, they move. They go do care plans, they go to SWIST, 504s, they provide education, they do student-specific training. So they're not bound to any one school. That's why you may see a health room aide also listed in the pod. And please know that this is a multi-year proposal. The way that the LPNs would move into the school is through attrition. As the health room aides resign, retire, move on, then we would fill the position with an LPN. Do you have any questions about? Yes, sir?
Where we're gonna get the money?
Yeah. And we'll go to that tab next if you'll hang on for just a blue moment. Yes, ma'am.
So are you saying that, you know, at the high schools, you're going to have an RN plus health aide plus LPN or 2 health aides at the schools? So you're going to be increasing what's at the high schools?
Well, again, the RNs will be floating. They'll be moving around, providing the oversight and the services that only they can provide, which is per statute is listed on the back page of your proposal. But yes, so if, go ahead.
Excuse me, just a moment. Are you looking at?
Is your mic on? Just press that
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry.
I'm looking at this.
Right. So if, I think the only 2 schools that have an RN and an LPN and a health aide is Northport High School and Riverview High School, and that's where we have our student parenting program.
Right, that's why you said
Student parenting,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
So there were a lot of considerations when the committee reviewed, like Chris is saying, we have to consider programs that are added to the gen ed population. And we looked at the balance of referrals and the needs for the student population. That's why.
And we have a lot of RNs that float a lot, too much now. And I mean, they float 4 or 5 schools. And sometimes, I know at Sarasota High, for example, because I've witnessed it, that on a Monday morning when that RN would come to work, there'd be a line, a very long line, waiting to see her outside her door. So there are some chronic health issues that our children are not having addressed any other way but with the school nurse. Shirley?
Back to the RN and LPN at Riverview and Northport because of the parenting program. Will that address some of the issues that Dr. Hill brought up, that we weren't providing the same type of care in the parenting programs as we used to? I mean, are we going to be missing? Because I think they were telling them that the parents were having to go to the health department or something. I mean, are we going to addressing some of those concerns?
The health department piece, Chris?
Certainly. I think that's a separate issue from this.
Yes, it Okay. is.
Okay. It's a totally separate issue from school health to family planning and health.
And we're going to get updates on that at some point.
Yeah, you might want to address that just right now, if you would, please.
Okay.
Because I think there was a lot of confusion at that meeting as to why it was closed and who was responsible.
Okay, I'm not, I'll admit to you right now, I'm not on that committee. I believe Sonia is. Are you on that committee, Sonia? Oh, Susie is. So, excuse me. School nurses are in the high schools that have parenting programs. That is separate from the services that had been provided by the Department of Health to the parenting programs. And so my understanding is there is a committee that is working on reinstituting services that were provided that is separate from the actual school health program of the district.
But I know this.
Both sites.
My daughter serves on that committee.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, that's why I said it's not part of this.
Right.
Because it's a totally separate committee.
But there was confusion, correct? That
Yes, there
Riverview,
was
that
confusion.
why was it closed? And
See, I guess this just goes to prove that board members don't talk about issues when they're. I'm together with Caroline for, I saw her New Year's Eve, but we didn't talk about this, and I didn't know her daughter was on that, and I'm very interested in this issue.
So if I could address that at kind of the 10,000 foot level is, I think a great first step is we've gotten all the stakeholders in the same room. We had an opportunity to meet over at Riverview High School. The conclusion of that meeting was that the district was interested in receiving a proposal for providing services on site at Riverview High School, and that the clinic is available to them, but that we as a district would not manage or operate the clinic. And so when we receive a proposal, we'll bring it to the board for consideration as far as what services they would like to provide on site or by use of their mobile unit. There are lots of options discussed, but basically the end of that meeting was us basically opening ourselves to them and saying, we're not in the business of operating clinics, but if you see a need here on site, and I think we did document some need, and there was need for some additional data that we're providing to them, but to basically say the ball is in your court. If you would like to utilize the facility, we'd be happy to negotiate an agreement to make the facility available to you, and we'll certainly bring that to the board so that you understand the scope of services that they're proposing to provide on site.
Thank you. Okay, so back to the LPN and RN at both sites. They provide services and care for both the students and the children at Riverview and Northport High. Any other questions about this pod effect? Eric's waiting for the funding piece. Blue tab. Yes, ma'am.
Her stomach to stop moving.
He's apparently not used to that.
We're talking about babies.
Here we are.
It's like doing what he's saying.
It's what happens.
Adopt.
So I guess when I was reading through this, and Jane just struck on this, and I know this is a passion. Jane has brought this forward for years to see how to find us an opportunity to improve upon this. I always run that question of jack of all trades, master of none, being very cautious of walking into, even with the clinic business, if you will, for lack of a better term. But what I found striking, and I just want to understand a little bit better, so you were saying at certain schools we have a line of students waiting for services. Mm-hmm. Is that...
A lot of schools, yes. We have increased complex needs these days.
Okay.
And average number of visits per health room per day varies, but one day it may be 50, one day it may be almost 100. That's a lot of kids. And the complex students require additional care. A diabetic may come to the health room 3 to 6 times a day. I have to check sugar before PE, right, after PE, before lunch, after lunch. I have to administer insulin. Only nurses administer insulin in Sarasota County schools. Mm-hmm. LPNs are also able to administer insulin. I can tell you that Karen and I stay up late some nights because if a nurse is out, a DOH nurse that's covering 3 or 4 schools, how are we going to get to that school and who's going to cover? So having a license in every school and a dedicated LPN that can provide almost all the same services as an RN would be very beneficial to our students.
Going to that scenario, which keeps you up at night, when I believe that's how passionate you are. So is that in the scenario we find ourselves in regularly? Not that we're hoping nothing happened, but has something occurred and that we don't have someone on site and kind of what do we do? That helps me understand the urgency and again, I'm very hesitant to expand too much where I want to make sure we keep our eye on one thing, but I also understand these problems present themselves and we are required, and rightfully so, to keep our students safe. So I just...
Daily.
Daily.
I had 3 nurses call in this morning, so we had to scramble to figure out how to cover, how to get insulin administered at 10, 12, and 2 at one school where the nurse is not there.
Thank you.
Yes. Caroline? Jane, Todd, is there any way that we can work with the technical college and somehow, I don't know, either groom them or some way so that they could enter and it be a help to us?
So the technical college is the primary provider of LPNs to the community, and so certainly we have the advantage of going to them and marketing the benefits of working in school health. You know, the backbone of this program is really twofold. One is increasing the head count. There's actually 4 additional staff being proposed, but it's also upgrading the services that are being provided. So currently we have, check my numbers, 40 health room aides who have a limited skill set and an even more limited scope of practice. Moving to LPNs, you would convert 15 of those to LPNs. That happens one of 2 ways: through attrition. Every time one moves into another position in the organization or leaves, we would replace them with an LPN. We would also have the opportunity to go to those health aides and say, do you have an interest in upgrading your skill set to an LPN? That is a substantial commitment. Be about 2 years on a part-time basis, but I do think it's incumbent on us to make that opportunity available. I don't know how many would be interested. It would happen kind of outside of the workday, but I think we could certainly scholarship them to the technical college and give them the ability. But we believe it could happen through natural attrition, but certainly you could speed it along if you had some that wanted to upgrade their skill set, so that you weren't waiting for the RN to come to your site, but you had an LPN who was there. Really relieves the
Can we
pressure
offer
on the system.
incentives besides the scholarship?
Well, there's a natural incentive, which is it's a different pay classification.
Yeah.
And so the deal would be upgrade your skill set to an LPN, and we'll put you in an LPN position. And so there's nothing better than going through training knowing that there's a job waiting for you on the back end. There would be a guarantee of being placed into one of the LPN positions.
I'm just thinking about childcare. I'm thinking of myself as a student when I had children. So, and how difficult it was for me to go back to school with them. So is there anything that we could do to help them with, say, childcare, or are they still working a full-time job plus going to school? So what kind of incentive? Maybe we can do a survey of them and ask them what we could do to help them continue their education.
If I may, this is actually being investigated at the state level because they see the need for LPN support in the schools. So it's now a component of the school health program. And we'll see what options may come down the pike. Maybe we go online training with some clinical practicums, but these are things that are in discussion, not just locally. They're up at state level because we need
And many
support.
districts are making that commitment.
Oh, absolutely.
Just as we are looking at now, many of them have already made a commitment, some to have RNs in every school. I've known that to happen at several districts, and the reason is because we have chronically ill students, and we have students that are not getting medical care. We know what's happening with low-income students and low-income individuals in the state, and is there a danger of giving them the wrong amount of medication? Yes. Is there a problem with not having attention at a certain time of the day because of diabetes and so forth? Yes. So it's a good thing for us to do, and it's something that we need to do. You cannot learn if you are sick. You cannot learn if you are hungry. And we need to help.
I think it's interesting that this is brought up, that this is an issue that you're bringing up for the state. I don't know how many other our departments might have overlapping issues that they're going to Tallahassee about that we might also be looking at when we go to Tallahassee to lobby our legislators to get support for this. I mean, is there any way that you can check with our other, to find out if, because I know we've got our administrators and we have our technical school has issues that they're looking at. I mean, if we can get an overview of what everybody on their organizations might be asking the legislature for, so that when we go up, that we could add these things to our list when we're talking to our legislators.
Sure. You talk about FACTI has a legislative agenda. Their group has a legislative agenda. Certainly you can compile those.
And one thing the legislators always like to have is, what do you want us to get rid of sometimes? Unnecessary stuff. They always ask, well, what do you want me to... Well, not necessarily cut funding-wise, but cut administratively. I mean, what red tape do you want me to get rid of from you? Those are things that... And I know that even back in the 90s when Democrats were in control, they were looking for those kinds of things. So I'm sure, they're looking for those things now too. What's out there that's causing problems for you in your district and in your area. So if we can hear those types of things too brought back to us from the different departments, that might help us too.
Well, a lot of platforms are already set, and it's getting close to session starting now. So I think that, it is on our radar, but it's not on our platform, but we certainly, we certainly think that it's...
today.
Yeah. You'd mentioned they'd already started a study. It's already, so this was a previous session. There's already movement towards analyzing. Is that correct? And then with that hopefully comes...
Tallahassee has already recognized the need and is looking at LPN support along with the RNs. So it's something that will come down from them. It's not just local. And I can tell you, just north of us and south of us, they've gone to the RN oversight LPN model exclusively.
Well, if in fact that DOE makes a presentation and it comes in a committee bill or something, let us know if it's coming in any bill so that we can add it to our list.
Okay. And I think as going back to budget, how we can accomplish this is looking at what do we have, what are the needs that have evolved in our district, and how can we have and brainstorm with limited resources, enhancing the quality of what we are already doing, and how we can improve that health care into our students. So this proposal is really from that lens of not increasing with limited resources, really expanding. And how can we accomplish, going back to your question, let's look at budgets, what we're proposing.
Caroline?
I understand what you said, Bridget, about the fact that you don't want to move into another area and take on another area. But I think at this point we don't have an option anymore, because if we want our students to learn, we have to be open to all these various opportunities that we need to provide for them in order for them to learn, for us to get the grades that we need, if you want to put it down in black and white, for us to get the grades that we need in order to get the money that we do to fund all of the services that we need. So it's just like all one big circle to me.
I would agree. And sorry, my biggest thing is the question. There's no question with a number of different topics that we are because it presents, we're presented with these challenges, and the question is, do we provide it, or are we a conduit to making sure they get those resources? That's why I asked that question. I mean, these are time-sensitive issues where it's not, hey, here's a referral, go to such and such off-site, because we're talking during the school day. That's why I needed the anecdotal, tell me what that looks like, because philosophically, I don't want us to be jack of all trades, master of none. But I also know that these do present themselves, so trying to figure out what that balance is really the challenge.
And this is real world, the way a student comes to school and presents he or she to us in a day. And if that student is not well and we can do something to help that student, it's, to me, is just as important as a free and reduced lunch.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I've been on the SHAC committee, as you all know, Susie, and everyone knows. For a long time I was on the SHAC committee, so heard the war stories. I've been with the RNs. I've listened to the talk in the various schools, and it's pretty tough out there. And now we have the bigger component, which Sonia, of course, knows, of addressing mental health, which probably was always there, but we weren't addressing it before now. So it's a challenging time.
Well, I think it's getting worse.
I do too.
That's the problem. It's not that it's steady, but the number of students and the severity is increasing, and that's where we run into problems.
Well, I think two factors are at fault. Number one, I think we're talking about it more than we ever had, and yes, the problem is worse. And so those two come together. It's kind of unspoken, but now we talk openly about it, and the problems are much more prevalent. So our ask for you today, and actually for the next 2 years, is that as health room aide positions become available, that we replace them with LPNs, and that any new positions be added in the out years. Certainly that's because of budget sensitivities, that we certainly hope things get better from a budget perspective and pressure is relieved, but we're not proposing to add any positions in 1920 or 2021, but as home health aide positions, health aide, former life, as these health room aide positions become available, that we advertise for LPNs to fill those positions. That's the formal recognition comes through budget amendments that we delete one position and add another, but I just want to make sure you know, quote, what we're up to every time you see these budget amendments of what's going on, is that we're moving to implement this proposal.
Bridget?
So to clarify, you're saying this would not be something until the 21-22 year?
Actually, it's something that we would move to implement immediately. We've had some health room aides positions become vacant. We've had people asked to fill them, and I've said, let's wait and talk about kind of what our objective is. I believe we have 2 vacancies currently for health room aides, and I propose that instead of going out and hiring health aides that you seek to replace, that you begin immediately advertising for LPNs and upgrading the skill sets.
I would certainly be in favor of that.
I would too. I think it's a good plan, and the way that you're doing it makes it cost effective. You know, that it's not a big hit to the budget at any one time. It's gradual.
Very systematic.
Well, I think it makes sense, and it really doesn't affect the budget a great deal, just a tiny bit this year. But I think that it's a plan that will sustain and help all of our nurses. And you know, how much attrition do we have in the RN ranks?
Well, it depends on a monthly basis. You know, we have a lot of relocation. It's very hard to compete with the private sector.
Correct.
And even though school health is a fabulous way of delivering a professional practice, because it allows you then also to practice privately, we have challenges on a day-to-day basis, and thanks to Karen and Susie, they oversee many times. They put on scrubs and they cover those schools when we don't have subs available. So, you know, we're trying, this proposal is to prevent barriers and to have a flow through the coming years in really enhancing the quality of services that Sarasota has been known to. And like you all said, the challenges that come on a day-to-day basis to our principals, to our administration, is trying to prevent and intervene so teachers can teach and students can succeed in a healthy environment. But those challenges have grown in our community, and we're trying to, this committee had really in-depth looked at ways to minimize the impact in a 5-year proposal.
Well, I appreciate this proposal, and I definitely support it. Bridget?
So I know we talked about it, and I understand the attrition component, so it's not right away. Can you walk me through the financial impact today, next year, et cetera, just so I'm clear? And yeah.
So let me bottom line it for you, is that we're looking to upgrade 15 health room aides to LPNs at a cost of about $5,400 per position. So each time we lose a health room aide, we replace it with an LPN. So that's a $5,400 cost on an individual unit basis. And then in the out years to add 4 additional positions at a cost of approximately $42,000 per position. I'm looking at.
I'm maybe looking at the wrong chart.
With the yellow highlight.
Okay.
I'm just looking at it because it has the unit costs on it.
I remember years ago this being a problem, and it started at Venice Middle School because they could not hire a nurse and they could not hire an LPN. You're smiling.
That used to be part of my assignment.
So you know what I'm talking about then. And it was a really big, they shut the clinic and then they opened the clinic and it was just murder. So I'm glad to see that. That was many years ago.
See, that's when that institutional knowledge comes in, right, Caroline?
Yeah. I would say at least 15 years ago.
When you said it was just murder, there were no deaths involved, right? I mean,
not that I know of.
No, that's why
figuratively.
we're running.
Figuratively. Anything else?
Yeah, sorry. On the fine print at the bottom, it says no supervisors included in totals.
Right.
So we would be needing to add them? No, we don't need to.
Statute. Karen and I are the supervisors.
So no, I'm just trying to get a look at this financially so that we're not, hey, let's go down this road and, oh, now we've got hired these people, rightfully so, we need them, but then there's a whole element of oversight, I don't know what the right word is, administrative staff that we didn't prepare for, but then we've already kind of put our foot in the water and can't backtrack because we don't want to let people go. We don't want, and we need to satisfy that. So I just want to make sure I have a full understanding because budget-wise, I see things being somewhat tighter than they have been in the past, and I don't know if we let go of this, where are we getting the additional? I should look at you, not them. But if we,
I think you're looking to hear for the record, we are proposing no change in the supervisory structure. Okay. None.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, I don't know where we'd be without good supervisors and how we would have survived some of the things that have gone on, some of the challenges of people being out or people leaving and going other places. And we have had a bit of attrition in some of these areas. So I think this is great stuff.
We have a pretty dedicated core, and you know, this is a great opportunity for LPNs as well, because the job opportunities for LPNs are somewhat more limited these days. They're being replaced with RNs in a lot of the clinical settings, so this would be a great assignment. And
that's very true. In hospitals, they are being replaced by RNs.
Right, and so, and younger parents, if you will, the two that we have now have children in our school system, so enjoy the holiday schedule and the work schedule and are absolutely thrilled to be a part of the team.
See, that's part of the incentive package.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, moving right along, we have our two famous members of our communications department, our communications director, Tracy Beaker, and Mina Ajrab, who is our all things guru of site management and expertise.
All things guru.
Digital, social media, everything.
Everything and more.
Mina has been my right hand this last year.
Everything and more.
Exactly. So good morning, everybody. We're going to give you a really quick overview with regards to the new school district website that we're anticipating launching at the end of February. So throughout the whole course of the last year, we've been kind of taking a step back with all of our digital and social media platforms and really assessing where there's opportunities for us to be able to, again, inform our constituents better, engage folks, and inspire them as well with regards to our school district. So with that, we conducted an assessment of our website, and we did a lot of research regarding trends in technology, what other school districts were doing, what they're doing really, really well, and how do we capitalize on that. And we actually found Seminole Public Schools to be a great role model for us. But their website is really fantastic. Seminole County, and Mina probably will show you a little bit of that as well. But for the most part, they not only are one of the top school district websites in the state of Florida, they are in the whole country. So they were a great test study for us to be able to realize. Sorry, they didn't win the award. But with that also, we've had a lot of conversations with parents, a lot of conversations with our district leadership and administrators in terms of what they're looking for. And really, for the most part, we're taking a look at moving from this website being mostly for school district employees to really our parents and our students, and for the most part. So with that, we have partnered with Blackboard. Many of you are familiar with them. And thanks to Joe Binswanger and the IT department for being able to help secure that agreement with them. This is going to be a great integration with all the other platforms that we already have. So we're excited about that because it's going to be literally one-click shopping with all of our communications on the digital side. So Mina also has been really instrumental the last several months in terms of really being able to migrate a brand new website over. And Mina, thank you for your leadership and your project management on this. You've just done an outstanding job. I can't wait to show you what this is going to look like and how it's actually going to function going forward. So with that, I'm going to probably turn it over to Mina to take a test drive and see what this looks like.
Wonderful. Two things I'd like to talk to first. The district draft we're going to cover, and then we're going to talk about your website and what that looks like and give you a chance to kind of test drive it, give us your input, that sort of thing. Tracy did mention Seminole County Schools. This is our current website, by the way, give you an idea of where we're headed from. Seminole County Schools was brought to us by Tracy, and I have to commend her for her vision. She's really gotten us to think about the parent first. This was our third refresh since I've been here, and we've kind of gotten in this lull of focusing first on employees, and our current site had kind of that employee portal feel where everything was there. We had an A to Z directory, and sometimes the bigger the phone book, the harder it is to find something, right? So we looked at Seminole County Schools, and if you notice right away, they have 5 main menu items up top. None of them are drop-downs. Their only drop-down is this I want to button that follows you on every page. And when you click the I want to button, you get their most popular 8 or their high traffic 8 areas that parents first go to when shopping or looking at a district or a district website. So those are the two, keeping it simple today, those are the 2 things that we just adored, we loved. So as I progress to the draft of the district website, I'd like to point out those 2 things that we kind of lifted in a very inspirational way, complementing Seminole. We only have 7 items up top, none of which are drop-downs. And there's this Find It Fast button that's going to follow you on every page of our new website. And when you click the Find It Fast button, you're going to see a search box, which is going to be powered now by Google Search. You'll see the top 9 items that we've identified as the 9 kind of the highlights, the most important areas. Find a school, hey, register a child. That needs to be on every page. Get involved, so the Office of Community Involvement, lunch menus, bus route, the easy ones. Learn about testing. I've got a 3rd grader as well as a 6th grader. FSA, what are we talking about at home? What does that mean? Search jobs, I'll talk about that in a second, what came up in the focus group. Calendars, we know calendars are always a big topic this time of year, especially after they're approved. Contact us. How do you contact us? Real quick, I'm going to scroll slowly down the page to give you an idea what this looks like. Again, responsive like our current website. We're going to have the translate feature, if not more, built into each of the pages. Campaign buttons up front, top 3. Upcoming events, our focus group wanted that lifted a little higher. So you'll notice that kind of came up a little bit. We're already making changes to we had a dozen or so parents last week at the landings. We hosted them and they gave us a lot of great insights. Tracy was there. We had some folks talk to jobs. We had them do about 6 or 8 things in the focus group, and then we kind of measured how well they did so it kind of was a usability study as well. We learned.
Sorry, Mina.
Yeah,
they were also really instrumental with us as we go to plan our school-based websites as well. We learned an awful lot of information from them in terms of what they look for, the difference between the district website and the school websites in particular. So again, they gave us great feedback to get started.
Is there a spot on there that it'll show, what performances are coming up at the schools? Because I know, there's not only the school plays, but now, Riverview and Venice Performing Arts Center has outside groups coming in and performing. at great rates. I mean, are those calendars incorporated in this too, or?
Because that's a really good point, Shirley, and because of what we learned from our parent groups in particular, but obviously just other people as well, we're actually going to be coming up with calendar guidelines for what is the pertinent information that should be captured on your school-based website and also on the district website. But then over and above that, what are you doing in the community, and how is the community involved in your school, and what does that look like from an events perspective as well? And then how does that translate into things like social media, so a much larger group of people have an opportunity to see what those events look like as well.
Thank you, Tracy. The one thing I do want to highlight, we went in blind to these focus groups with the parents, and glad to report the top thing that was their absolute favorite, once they found it, was the Find It Fast menu. So we felt really on solid footing that was a good decision for us to kind of give them this menu of options wherever they were on our website. Good segue to board page now, Tracy?
Yeah, just also really quickly, some of the tabs at the very, very top really go back to what the school district is really known for. So it's not only providing an opportunity for parents and students to learn an awful lot more, but obviously now we have an emphasis on arts and academics and athletics, and what does sort of the AAA kind of look like. And from that perspective, we're really starting to build out those particular parts of the website. But again, we have to assume that there are a lot of people who do come to our website who know nothing about Sarasota County schools, and really this website allows us an opportunity to really market everything that we do here in the school district and really focus stories that happen on an ongoing, every single day basis from our teachers, from our students, from our partners, and really have almost like a little mini blog on there too, so that we can bring those stories to life for the community.
So this is not up on the website yet?
Not yet.
That's correct. We're anticipating launching at the end of February.
Okay, so I just went on to see if I could find it.
It's still, the existing site is still up right now.
This is probably what you
once
saw,
we
right?
pull the trigger on this, hopefully on the 28th of February, it'll probably be for like the next week or two thereafter that we'll have both sites available. One will be hidden to most folks, but for the most part, we need to be able to start continuing to migrate things over. So we're going to learn a lot the first 2 weeks that we're up and running.
I know we have the dashboard, but will people be able to compare school? I mean, you know, like that thing you get from the Department of Education where you can easily look to see what schools are A's, what schools are B's, what schools are. I mean, because we're talking about school choice, people want to know how's the school doing.
Do we have links right now to deal with? Do we have links right now to deal with?
We certainly.
Number point of view, they may want to know how does my kid.
I don't think you'll see a side-by-side comparison right now.
You won't see a side-by-side comparison, but we do now have a specific schools tab that gives you a lot more information regarding each of our individual schools. And Eric, if something like that is important in terms of being able to see how our schools are rated individually, then certainly we'd like to make sure that we're putting that up there.
I know if their kid's going to an A school or B school or C school.
Yeah.
I know that I know I'm a board member, but I'm still looking. I mean, to be refreshed, I look right away.
Sure.
When I'm looking for it.
And to Eric's point, we do have that on our current site under quick links, and we'll surely port that over to the new website. So it's on the very bottom of the drop down, and that takes you to the DOE page.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Right, but then there's a lot of navigation.
Well, even DOE is not the easiest.
Yeah.
Dr. Bowden, is there ways that we can have perhaps parent or student aids, like Vroom, that's free for young children, and that one that they just said was something reads.org, and some of these other, and like greatschools.org, and I know PBS has programs for kids, that we can give these connections that they can have where they have access to information that's free.
The answer to that is yes. We're going to be posting an awful lot more resources, whether they happen to be things that are specifically employed within the school district now, or resources that the school district really admires that we think parents would want to know about, our students would want to have access to, our teachers would want to have access to. So yes, you're going to see that over time.
Will this be more mobile friendly than our current webpage?
I'm going to probably defer that to Mina, but for the most part, again, this is going to be very similar to our mobile app right now, where you can see it.
Yeah, not without getting too deep, Eric, our current site uses Bootstrap, and this site uses Blackboard's platform. So the Blackboard platform is cloud hosted. a little differently than our current website, so it kind of relieves that pressure from the technology department. So if Blackboard updates a template, we have access to that update. We can refresh it. It's not a big to-do like it is now.
I understand everything you just said, but my question is sometimes you view our current website on the phone, it ain't mobile friendly as other sites, is it?
Right. This is our current mobile site. Give you a little illustration of what a mobile site would look like on a phone. So you can see how it stacks. And on the new website, it is more mobile friendly, I think. And I leave that up to you to judge, but I think
if you have an iPhone.
If you had an iPhone.
See,
right.
this is the problem.
Yeah. And on the very bottom, Jane, there is of the Blackboard system. You can click view full site. Sometimes people don't want a mobile version of a website. They want a miniature version of the full website on a tablet. So we do have both those options on the new website. Oh, well, thanks. So I have moved over to the school board's page. So this is kind of your page. It's your baby. Again, taking a shot in the dark, we brought over everything on your current website to this website. If we can hear back from you, after this meeting, I'm going to personally send you a link to visit this website, your website. By the end of January, if you can provide us your feedback, you can certainly email me back, call me, whatever you'd like to do. If there's something you'd like changed or revised, let me know. And we'll do our best to make that happen and make changes.
Can you make me thinner?
Absolutely. Hey, absolutely.
Yeah, but on this particular page, though, we have made a couple of changes and enhancements. For the most part, we obviously want to really focus on your legislative priorities and be upfront about them in terms of what they are, what they look like, and again, additional resources to be able to learn more. From there, we do also want to have various different resources available so people can go to various different school board associations and the coalition's websites, too, to be able to learn what their focus is for the most part. And we've just really concentrated a lot of the information a little bit and also just made the copy and the text shorter and a lot more inviting and welcoming for people to get to know who all of you are. And Eric, to your point about the bios, I think if you clicked on a particular person's image, being able to learn more about them and again, not only see where their district is,
that's a great
but obviously have a bio too that's interactive, I think is really important.
I think thinking shorter, Joe, who's sitting in the back of the room, I always have a problem with SarasotaCountySchools.net. Is there anything underway to make that shorter? Well, but you fill in a page when you're at a seminar or something, Bridget, and they have this little tiny thing here, and you just don't have room. Is there any thoughts about making that little acronym like?
We can certainly look into that.
And the other thing I have a problem is this consistency among people's users' name. For example, Stephen Cantis, who's the person in point. Stephen is hardly what he uses as his name, but it's, I think, Cantis.Stephen. So some people have the first name versus the last name front. I think I've had problems with
Stephen, I think, is sometimes, I try to do Steve, and it's not. It's Stephen with a PH.
It is always first name dot last name, but if you were blessed to have your parents name you Curtis, but you go by Todd, you can request to have it changed to Todd. And so should Stephen choose to be Steve, we can accommodate that through IT, but but that's up to him if he would like to be Steve instead of Stephen.
Do I have to be Go Gators at Sarasota?
No, you may not unless you change your name.
Legally, yeah.
But Jane, to your point, though, with regards to like SarasotaCountySchools.net, we also have a lot of history with regards to that. So from like a search engine perspective with Google and other analytics, we want to make sure that we are as consistent as we possibly can be. And the more that as soon as you change to your URL to a different URL, you're going to lose a lot of that history and a lot of those insights. So we want to be mindful of that as well.
We know a lot of people have got away from Sarasota.K12.FL.US, which is what our real website name is, correct? That's still
Well, if I could just interject real quick. When I first started here, I was in HR for about 3 months while they were getting the office ready, and 6 times a day I would hear a phone get answered with, our website, Sarasota.K12. Wait. The dot goes, no, FL, no. So I think you were the big push to get us to the 3 words. And I think we need to just pause, be careful, because those 3 words are very semantic, meaning, for example, if I send it to grandma, if the kids went to school and grandma I always use the grandma test or the grandpa test. If they get scs.net, they may not know what it means. If it's spelled out Sarasota County Schools, let's not discount that so quickly. That's very important too, especially with, schools.
Well, I know, but look at the government. Look at Sarasota County government. They've
SC Gov, right?
Yeah, and look at most of the school districts around the state. There are a few that haven't, but most of them, you know, OPS,
right?
Orlando Public. I don't know.
I think we should at least look into it and see what we could and do. Maybe.
That's middle school board member.
Why not Sarah Schools?
Thank you. And again, some of the feedback we got from parents was they loved the visuals, they loved how clean it was, and the easy navigation in terms of being able to find the things that were most important to them. So we got, again, great insights and feedback. So Mina's going to go ahead and make sure that you all have a specific link so that you can kind of take your own individual test drive. And again, if you have any questions or ideas, especially for the school board page, we certainly welcome them between now and the end of the month. And also just kind of a look ahead, we have been starting to get some parent information, and we've been sharing with principals as well, and we'll be doing some focus groups with principals and teachers, but we want to specifically now be able to start migrating our school-based websites over this spring and this summer so that at the beginning of the next school year, we'll have everything 100% converted.
Wow.
Mina has been on going 400 miles an hour on this project, and he's been doing a great job, and I can't wait for this to be able to launch and for people to have a new experience.
Okay.
Pardon our dust come February. That's all I got to say.
Bridget?
No, I want to applaud you. I think it looks really good. It's clean, and I love that you guys did focus groups because I think that's so important. There's so many people from different perspectives running through it and on it, and I think it looks really good. So
thank you.
Kudos. Good job, guys.
He does great work. You do too. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, Mina. Anything else? That's it? Okay, moving right along. Do we need to... Our next section is on our new e-agenda software, and so we're going to move up to the dais to... Any comments? Do you want to do some comments? Do we want to do some comments before that? Why don't you do the comments now, Bridget? It seems like that we have a host of people who've set up, and I can't imagine they're here for the software.
Well, I am very excited about the software, so I just want to say that. No, I had sent Todd a message, and I know in a previous workshop, very, very quickly, we talked about cell phone use over the break, and there's been just a series of articles that I've read and white papers that have elevated my concern about the abundance of use of cell phones. I know we're going through, actually, to be fair, I didn't tie the two together. If you know, in February, we're doing a continuation of our policies, and student cell phone is under Chapter 5.38.
Yes, we're looking at that this morning. So we'll have that for review. Our policies will be reviewed before our first meeting in February.
Right. So timing-wise, it kind of worked out, but what I wanted to say is I wanted to propose two things. The current policy that we have, which we will be reviewing, doesn't appear to be adhered to it in any way, shape, or form, or it's sporadic. I would like to consider going a step further and consider it is the ban on cell phones bell to bell for students. I said the security component's one that concerns me, so I'd want to hear from various stakeholders and staff to get that input. I know that I shared with you a number of teachers had reached out, and I thought their feedback was the one that shocked me probably more than anything else on the level of disruption. And it probably, I would say, if I were to not scientifically say, it was over 70% were very supportive of completely eliminating the use of cell phones inside the classroom. So my proposal would be to consider, which I think of mine maybe on the more extreme side, would be a ban of cell phones on their persons from the beginning of school to the end of school. If they want to turn it on to schedule something after school or before school or walking, etc. I understand families want to, and I understand it's a communication function, but I believe that when they're there at school, while they may be used for any kind of curriculum, it's far and few between, and I believe it tends to be counterproductive. I think the communication, the erosion of communication abilities in our developing minds, young children, is, I think, paramount. They're there to learn. I think there's a level of respect and decorum in a classroom that this will enhance. So I think it's a bold reform. We would be the first in the state of Florida that would be going towards this route. I will tell you, Massachusetts, Wisconsin, Illinois, some heavy leadership, very strong school districts have gone this way, and it did take some time to adapt. And lo and behold, and I'm happy to send you any articles that I've been able to come across, a lot of the students are refreshed and relieved that this has been done, because it's almost as if they're addicted, didn't know it, but their hand has now been forced, and they're at a point where they can focus, communicate with their friends, but also focus on what they're there to do, which is education. So before we went to any staff feedback or even going into the policy, I wanted to get some feedback from the board to see if this is something you guys are interested in pursuing or entertaining.
Shirley?
I know that I had heard from a lot of parents that were concerned that they wanted to have that connection, especially in this day and age. You know, they want to be able to hear from their kids if there's an emergency, besides at the school, but maybe within their own family. You know, that there were a lot of parents that wanted to be able to be connected to their kids during the day.
Caroline?
That's funny, because I've heard the same thing. And I've also heard from teachers that don't want us in the classroom, that feel that we don't belong making policy, that they can handle their own. And that was at that luncheon I was at. I was sitting there with 6 teachers, and they did not want us to be involved to set any policy or any.
Our job is to set policy.
No, but you're talking about setting policy on cell phones, and I'm telling you that if you're looking for feedback, some of the teachers don't want us to be involved. They want to be able to run their class the way they see fit. So for me personally, I don't have a problem with not allowing cell phones in elementary school, but making sure that they're available to the students because of the parent concern about safety. And Eric, you always talk about your daughter calls you when there's a problem, and you have to use your cell phone in order to respond to her. So I don't think you would want your daughter not to have a cell phone, but I shouldn't speak for you. Wait a minute. Middle school, I'm not so sure about, so I'd like to hear a discussion on middle schools. And in high schools, I think what Dr. Shelley is doing in high school is phenomenal. She has her cafeteria as a safe area where students can use their phones in the cafeteria, but not all day long. And the other thing is that we are using some form of communication on the students for classes.
Glad you brought that up.
So, I mean, I would need to know that. And I did see your book. I did read your book there. And I did speak to teachers, and I spoke to parents. So this is not just me. This is what I've heard.
Eric?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up, but I know Jane has been talking about this for a much longer time, and I know it's something that interests her. And you are right. Madison was contacted me, but it was after hours. She was at the volleyball game at Venice High, and she was scared because where was Daddy? And I was still at the meeting. So I agree that there are times that you want to, but it's most of the times for me is after after school, when to pick them up, when where they at, that kind of thing. But I do agree that there is a safety component. But I agree that elementary school, I was shocked by the one teacher who wanted the cell phones was a 4th grade teacher, and she was using it in her classrooms, and it starts thinking, well, what percentage of parents are giving their kids cell phones in elementary schools, and are we now requiring? In this teacher's classroom, it seems like you're pretty much required to have a cell phone in her 4th grade classroom. If not, you're going to miss out on the learning environment. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, making the parents, we were talking to people about, SAIS. We were talking about, people with 51%, free and reduced lunch, and requiring this extra burden on families of providing the 4th grader. I really didn't want to, provide my any of my kids a cell phone after they get into middle school. I thought they were just too young. Because we're not really talking about, I'm going to tell you, just be honest, the kids use the phone less often for calling, because you want to get me upset is when I call my kids, they don't answer the phone. I'm like, why do you have a cell phone if you're not going to answer my phone? They're using it for Instagram and Facebook. They're using it essentially as a mini computer. Mm-hmm. That's what they're using these cell phones for. They're not using it for talking on the phone or texting. They're using it for discourse and so many other ancillary things. So I think it should be, the watch, the iPad, all those other distractions. And I don't I think we need to revisit if we're requiring elementary school students to have these devices in their classrooms in order to, get educated and do the curriculum. We need to review that process. I mean, are we requiring? I mean, when the teacher's saying, we had a 4th grade teacher email us in about her using it to do instantaneous quizzes. If we're requiring elementary school students to have that phone, I think the solution is why maybe we shouldn't have that as part of the curriculum of requiring parents to have the elementary school. I think that it's more harm than good. I think that there's a lot of dangers between the fortnight before the school and all those kind of things. It's very distracting. So I think that it's a more hindrance than it is positive. I think we have iPads that kids can get with iReady, and when the kids get access to the iPads, I don't know if you guys realize that, but the kids can text with the laptops. They can communicate with you with their iPads, and I mean, one of my sons hasn't had his phone for a couple of months, but it has not stopped him from communicating, which is kind of surprising to me. So they're able to get around all those things than what you do with the phone. So I think that it's more of a distraction than it's worth.
Dr. Bowden, do you have any comments? I'm going to get around once and then we'll start again.
I would just caution that the conversation needs to be around what you're willing to allow versus what you require. I'm aware of nowhere that we require a student to have a cell phone. I also have great confidence in our teachers to manage their learning environments. When we visit classrooms, you see varied approaches. There are teachers who use smartphones as part of their instructional process. They do not require that a student have them, but they do tap into that technology. There are other students, or there are other instructors who ask that the cell phone be out and visible. The reason that they do it is if it's in the upper left-hand corner, I know where your phone is at versus is it under the desk and are you doing something covert? Other teachers, when you enter their classroom, have shoe racks where you literally deposit your cell phone as you enter the classroom. Others use out of sight, out of mind. If there's a teacher in our district who says, I don't want cell phones in our classroom, I think we need to give them the freedom to say there will be no cell phones in our classroom. But I also believe the opposite is true, is that if we have teachers who have learned to use cell phones as part of their instructional process, that we should not limit them in their usage. When I talk about kind of personal progression, since we've all told kind of our personal story, is my students didn't get cell phones until they went to middle school. I can tell you that when I got my daughter her cell phone between 5th and 6th grade, she swore she was the last kid in the world to ever get a phone. And I was a little surprised by that because I didn't even entertain the idea of getting a cell phone for my child in elementary school. I can tell you she's now in high school. She's part of the ACE program at Sarasota High School. She's part of the MAST program at Sarasota High School. I've heard from her MAST instructor who is just desperate that how can I be charged with equipping my students to enter a modern world, but you're telling me to pretend like cell phones don't exist? And so I think that there is a spectrum here in regards to there should be a different approach at elementary than there is at middle, and a different approach at middle than there is at high school. But I also think we need to have great respect for our teachers to manage and own their own learning environments. That's my personal opinion.
Well, I would just say this is part of policy in Section 5, which is currently under review by myself and Dr. Kingsley, who is our Chief Academic Officer. We met this morning to discuss just this issue, and she had some input from our executive directors of elementary, middle, and high school, which I think we need to take their input into consideration as well. And here's just the snippet from Jane Goodwin, who is not making this decision alone. I see no reason for a child to be using a cell phone in class in elementary. Students in elementary school need to be involved with presence. the Patterson Foundation is now doing a book circle, which I'm taking advantage of with some of my dear friends, some of which are young parents, some of which are old ladies like me, grandparents, and middle of the road. But we're going to be doing the book circle on the power of presence, and that is the one problem that we have. One of the big problems we have in society now is we aren't trained to listen. We don't listen. We don't do things individually. You look at parents and children going out to dinner or walking down the beach. Mom and dad are ahead on their cell phones. Little Johnny at age 5 is walking behind them. He could be in the drink and they'd never know it. People not talking, not engaged. Students not engaged. I was recently at a middle school and saw 5th graders in a presentation in the media center with 5 of them with their cell phones out, like it was just standard view for them to have that cell phone out at all times. I went ballistic. I've also been to middle schools and seen the kids out at lunch in the outside sitting in the hot sun, and they're not talking to each other, they're using their cell phones. I have more concern at no cell phone use at elementary school than I do at middle or high. And that seems to be, we have to come to a common point. But I think what we need to do on February the 5th, when we actually sit down and review those policies and look at what Chapter 4 and 5 says, is maybe come up with a consensus of how we'd like the policy set. First of all, it's a policy that's really got things in there that aren't policy oriented. Starts talking about career and technical, and we're preparing students for the future. Well, that shouldn't be in a policy. And it's cell phones and everything else combined. We all know that in middle schools we have a lot of career and tech. We have a lot of tech active classrooms, and those kids have a lot of technology in the classrooms that they're using without engaging in cell phone use. But I think that we have to look at it, perhaps, at lunchtime, if that's something that we're putting into our, performance, student performance and social emotional learning, and students are able to use their cell phone like Dr. Shelley does as a safe zone, and a zone would be in the cafeteria. Some of those things exist. But I know that in high school, it is different, and I do think there are considerations for use in high school. Kids are going to have cell phones in high school. There are trees that some teachers use where the student comes in the room and they put their cell phone on the shoe rack or the tree. But I don't say I have all the answers right now, but I know that we need to come up with a separate cell phone, watch, whatever policy, and then everything else, perhaps laptop, iPad, and all those other devices would be in another policy separately. I think we need a separate cell phone device,
personal device,
watch policy. And I think we need to look at that. We're going to talk with our attorney, Mr. Hardy, and we'll review that. And I think we need to look at doing something with that in the near future. Caroline?
I listened to all of you, and technology and cell phones are a way of life. They are here. They're part of the learning process. And I like the idea of what you said, that teachers manage their classrooms. So are we looking to give teachers an out by saying you can't manage your classroom as it pertains to cell phones, so therefore we will ban cell phones in your class? I don't think that's what we should be doing. I think if a teacher wants to use the cell phones, we should allow them to. I don't like strict bans. I just don't, because there's no leeway for anything if you do a strict ban. And if there's one classroom in a school that's abusing something, you're going to punish the whole class. I learned this lesson 20 years ago when I said something about banning something at a high school. And I was told, do you want to ban all of the high schools? I said, no, it's only this one that's doing it wrong. And I was told, no, you can't do that. You either ban it all or you don't ban any, because you can't set anybody aside, separate. So I'm back, and as you can see, I'm back and forth on this issue. I use my cell phones for my grandkids. They all use cell phones. And the only way I can get them is through texting them. They don't pick up their phone. They don't listen to a phone. The only way I get them is text them. Text them, I get instant feedback from them. When I have to pick up my grandson at school, I'm sometimes late, I'm sometimes early. I text him to tell him that I'm on my way. He doesn't text me back, but he knows that I'm on my way. And he's at Booker High.
You don't text him in the car while you're driving on your way.
No, I do not. I never use my texting while I'm driving.
Text and talk.
That is the truth. I know better than that. Besides which, I always have kids with me, and there's a very bad sign. So I don't know where I fall, except I really don't want a strict ban all policy. I even if I'm the only voice, I cannot go for that. I just can't.
Shirley?
Yeah, and you know, I think you make a point too when you talk about banning cell phones. I mean, when they can get calls on their watches now. I mean, I don't know.
Take their watches.
And you can use your watch for a computer. And you know, I don't know if it's true at all elementaries or if it's just our phone carriers, but I can't call my daughter after school, before school at Philippi Shores. Somehow the building blocks the calls. You can't get service inside the building.
Construction.
But I mean, I don't know if she can still get internet service inside the building. You know, I don't know. But there's something about the building itself that blocks calls. And you're going to respond to that?
I just want to make clear we're not jamming cell service at Philippi Shores.
So it's probably
there are certain buildings that the method of construction, my office at the technical college, I had to physically get up from behind my desk and go sit in another chair to get a
stand by the window.
It's just.
But one thing I found is that the old phones, you know, my granddaughter was always playing on my phone, the little one, when I got the 8, my husband took the 6 from me, but she found the old 4 in the drawer and pulled that out, and you know, while she's at the house, there's as long as it's active, she can get in and play the games. So without cell phone service, some of these old phones and old iPads and stuff are still good, and perhaps maybe those teachers that want to use them in their classrooms might ask, you know, if you upgrade your phone and you've got that old phone sitting there, maybe you want to donate it. But another thing that came up, as long as we're talking about phones and iPads and whatnot, is virtual reality. There was some that you're not supposed to use virtual reality on children under a certain age. And I think this has happened in Manatee County. It didn't happen in Sarasota. But they were all upset that a teacher used virtual reality in the school. And was that a good thing or not? And, you know, not that I want to open up another can of worms, but that might be something we want to look at too. What is our virtual reality policy?
Well,
and does it affect young children differently than older kids?
And I will say that we have some installed. I've had a conversation with Joe about this. We have some that we've tried, and most of the ones that we're using, the goggles we're using, don't have an age restriction on use. However, there is not much software out there for students, so it's not something that we're using very heavily other than in an experimental way. Some teachers were able to get these for their classrooms, but there's very little software developed to use in classrooms. But you're right.
But yeah, we need to make sure that it's age appropriate.
Yeah, that's another consideration. Eric, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back. When you guys are talking about being able to contact, I mean, these kids are still going to bring the cell phones to school. They're just going to keep it in the book bag.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be within, if something happens, if they really need to get to their cell phones because there's a lockdown or something, I think the teachers are going to suspend certain rules when that's happening. But I mean, Jane's always the great compromiser on the board, and I can't fault her for at least saying elementary school. I was really aghast when the 4th grade teacher was talking about having to have this, and I understand you're saying it's not required, but if the teacher's saying that she uses it in her classroom, then you don't want to be the only student who doesn't have that type of device, and you don't want to be the parent of the child, and you're not providing those things for the child. I keep saying daughter because I'm mad. But I mean, then she wants Instagram, and she's like begging and begging us every day, wanting to get Instagram. There's no filters on the Instagram thing, so that really, bothers me. And when you were talking about preparing them for the future, the question is, what kind of future do you want to prepare them for? Do you want to prepare them for a future where they can't communicate like Jane was talking about?
Yeah.
Do you want to prepare them for a future where they can't assimilate? They can't give persuasive arguments of why they support certain thing. I don't know how it is with your children. I can just tell you, my kids are like in the Witness Protection Agency. When I ask them how the school day is, it's their communication skills are sorely lacking. But it's just like ugh, and it's one-word sentences. I think part of that is the reliance on the digital medium. But I think the phones, if you're going to ban cell phones, you have to ban the watches. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, we're going to ban cell phones and it's going to be the book bag, and then the kid gets around and the watches. But I am concerned about the requiring kids to bring some sort of device in order to participate in the curriculum of the class. I'm not telling the teacher whether she should do it or not, but then we should provide that as a school district. If we're requiring the students to have a laptop at the school in order to participate in the curriculum, but we don't provide the laptop, I mean, that severely impacts, the lower socioeconomic kids, which I don't think.
We don't want them carrying a laptop all around all day either, would we? I mean, that's heavy.
Well, what are you going to, but my point is, if you're requiring a particular electronic device in order to participate in the classroom discussion and the curriculum, then I think that we need to be the ones providing it. I don't think that it's fair to the kids, especially the ones in low socioeconomics, to say, hey, everybody open up your laptop because we're going to do an online textbook, and then none of the kids, half the kids in the class don't have, laptops to participate in the online textbook. If we're going to require kids to use a device in order to participate in the educational process, then we need to provide the thing. I'm just going to say it again. I was really shocked that fourth grade teacher said that she was using cell phones, and it sounds like that my kids or your kids would have been able to participate in that class if they were in that classroom. Yeah, and I wouldn't have caved, but I would have been, disappointed, but I probably wouldn't have caved.
Bridget?
So, well, first, to be fair, I had reached out. Well, I really challenged myself at consistency. If you remember last week at our retreat, that was one of my main things. I really try to be consistent, and micromanagement is something I'm very cautious of. And really ensuring we're not tying the hands even further than some others already do, from the state or what have you, when it comes to classroom teaching. And so that was something I really struggled with. And I did ask when I spoke with the union to say, what are you hearing about this? They actually reached out, and I got a ton, which I shared with you. And I thought, while there are absolutely teachers in there that say, I use it. A number said I use it, but I could definitely do without it because it causes more headaches than what it's worth. But what I found fascinating was, and that's why I said, is this a board policy or is this something that we kind of leave to the principal? Because I think if that's what our last discussion was, it was really kind of around that. And I believe it sets a culture, a tone for that environment. And I don't want to handicap or hijack the ability to embrace technology. I'd argue we don't. We're probably one of the best suited districts in the state when it comes to technology and all the innovation that we do for our students. So I don't think we're keeping them from that. And I can promise you, I'm sure they're going to be utilizing their cell phones when they're not in school. I'm challenging us to think more narrowly on, okay, when they are in school, to be present, to be able to, there's a number of things beyond just academics, but it's the development of learning how to cope without this device. I think that's beneficial. Adults could probably benefit from it. I know there are a number of companies that are pushing towards this because it's disruptive for productivity. But what I want to go back to is the teacher component, because I definitely didn't want to make that decision. We have to hear from the front lines, and that's one piece, the executive directors and the security piece. And again, that's kind of why I wanted to have this initial discussion before we invoke any kind of staff time, and it kind of falls in conjunction with that policy review anyway. But to really think about, okay, pros and cons, the security piece is the one that I keep bringing up. But when it came to the feedback that a number of teachers had, and I would argue, I didn't count it, but I would argue it was a gross majority that were for saying get rid of it, and a lot of them said because they just choose, it's not that they have poor classroom management, it's just is this a hill you're gonna die on? Because every single day you have a limited amount of time to get that curriculum and get the lesson done for the day. And if you're arguing over, kids are coming in charging their I mean, I was like shocked. Kids are coming in trying to charge their phones or hiding their phones, and finally, or if one teacher does it and the other one doesn't enforce it, the consistency becomes really that problem. To me, when I read that, that says, okay, well, maybe that is an appropriate time for the board to step in so that you do lay that consistency. And again, what that consistency looks like, I think it would behoove us to look at. Do we go full ban K-12, or do we find something else? But I feel like we have to hear more from people who are in the classrooms, or the disciplinary component. I mean, are we going to be talking about how do you enforce this? That seems to be one of the biggest issues. If you look at our past policy, I'd be okay. Our past policy, which was revised in 2012, and it seems that enforcement really is one of the biggest issues. There are a lot of teachers there that they don't want to allow it because they want them to, and they can satisfy their embracing the technology in other forms, because while there are educational components where they're able to be used, 9 times out of 10 they're being used for the social media, or students are asking to go to the bathroom, and maybe that would be a negative implication of saying only in the locker. Students are asking to go to the bathroom high amounts and to go check their phone. So but I think that to me was what was so telling about the feedback, is it was far more of an issue than I even initially had suspected. I will tell you, I'm a mother of a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old going on 13, and I will say that I don't have a cell phone for either of them. Reagan's in preschool next to Ashton. If there's a lockdown or security, I rely on the school to tell me what's going on. And I think that I know as she gets older, and I've already made it very clear, she will not have a cell phone, because I get very concerned about the way in which it limits the ability to develop. And I will have to call the office if there's an emergency. I don't need to explain what that personal emergency is to that office, but if there's something that I need to get in contact with my student, I have all the faith in the world that we have great communication mechanisms in place. It may be uncomfortable, and change is tough, but after some time, that may even bridge a better community between the staff, and the school and the parents, so that they're not circumventing that. Because that was something, I don't know if you guys read that, but that's something that's also happening. And I want to challenge parents who have, and I appreciate a lot of the feedback we got, and as a parent, I get it. In the case of emergency, is the question that they're are they contacting first responders? I really would love to know if, like in the past, if that has been the scenarios. So we need to look through that lens. Or is it that a family member, and I can understand this, and I know all of us would want to hear from their child in the event of a lockdown with limited information, is my child safe? And so I can understand that that's what we're so used to now. But I would challenge us to say, as educational leaders and policymakers, what's the benefit that this could create for the culture of a learning environment, and it not just learning academic, but the social environment that I believe has become incredibly toxic with social media and the constant. I mean, there are stories of students during passing hall taking video and taking pictures of a student, and it'll disrupt the entire day because they post it on Snapchat. And so if they just don't have that accessible, and yes, they need to learn and develop how to be, responsible citizens in a digital world. But I think that when you have an opportunity, because that's all they a lot of times know, if there's an opportunity, and this is what I've read that the other districts have done it outside the state, it really clears their mind to the real unnecessary waste a lot of times that this has done, and the toxic nature of it. And so there's a lot of unforeseen benefits that I think we could challenge ourselves to think about. So with all that, I just want to see.
I think we've got good points, and I think we come back on the February the 5th with those good points. I want to say and make this point. We have two extremes. We have a student who told me at Riverview High School that if she finds a teacher that she has boring, she'll use her cell phone and tune out. Whereas she has such and such teacher who's just wonderful, and she would never use her cell phone. But what I'm saying is that's not her decision to make. That's right. One extreme. The other extreme is that there are, pouches now that you can get that I sent you all a Bruno Mars concert recently in Las Vegas. A friend went to the concert and found that they were required to put their cell phone in that pouch. And they said it made a great deal of difference in the experience of the concert, because nobody had their phone out. Nobody was allowed to take pictures or do anything during that concert. And then as they went out of the the performance, there was a thing that you touched and it popped open the device, and some schools are using that. That's very, very extreme. I wouldn't want to see us ever do something that extreme. But I do believe that we need to revisit the cell phone, watch, and that whole cellular issue. And I think we need to look at all other devices as a separate policy and come up with something that teachers would look at and would practice and would agree on, and administrators. Dr. Kingsley and I looked at some ideas this morning, and we're prepared to, and will be prepared to discuss this when we convene for those 2 hours before our board meeting on February 5. Caroline?
I would challenge the board. Can we adhere to our own policy?
Mine is in my bed.
Mine is out because Mike is sick. Otherwise, it's always away.
I'm not kidding.
But can we? Oh, yes, we are. Because the last time I brought this up, it was 3 to 2 that you wanted to be able to use your cell phones at the board table. No. So yes, it was.
Oh, I'm saying I support not doing them at the board table. So
I would challenge us if that's the policy we're going to make.
Absolutely.
That's something that we should adhere to at this board table. So we're not distracted, and we're doing the business of the board.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea. Shirley,
I'm with you.
Anything? Anybody else have anything to add for the good of the order?
I'm not a student. So as we look forward to February 5th, at this point, Dr. Kingsley has talked to executive directors and our principals. I know there's been an informal survey of teachers that has taken place. Are there items that you would like to have staff prepare, policies from Massachusetts, other place? What is it that you're asking me to bring to the February 5th workshop?
Eric?
I'm curious of the prevalence of students being required to use these cell phones as part of the educational process, particularly elementary school, middle, and high. I mean, that's meaningful to me. But I mean, you understand.
Versus
specific required versus allowed.
Right, required versus allowed. Not just that, but iPads are. I mean, she's got her iPad out. But the people need to have their iPads. They need to bring them out. And well, we requiring students to bring electronic devices to the school, or instead of us providing them to them.
Okay.
My biggest thing is just that security discussion of in cases of tips, scenarios, us looking at it on a positive side, where has it helped us? Has it hurt us on the security side when there is a lockdown, miscommunication, misinformation, but also from a tip side? So who the appropriate person and staff, that may be a couple, but I'd really like to look at through the vantage point of security.
I do want to make you aware that we have charged our facilities department with evaluating all of our physical plants as far as cell service. Is one of the things that we got out of the MSD report was that there were dead zones within the building which hampered communications, and so we're trying to evaluate where repeaters may be necessary. So we're actually looking to increase cell distribution within our buildings from a security standpoint. That's certainly a separate conversation from students carrying devices, but you may see us invest in repeaters and other things based on some recommendations coming out of that report.
Shirley?
What about any virtual reality being used that it must be age appropriate? I mean, I don't know if...
Well, as I say, we're only testing them and just have a few. We have about 15 classrooms that have some that aren't using them on a regular basis, that got some special funding money for it. But one of the biggest problems we've got is that there just isn't any software developed.
I mean, I don't know.
But I think we need
in saying that anything must be age appropriate.
Yeah, well, I think we need a policy.
And if we're talking about the same thing, I think it was about just... And this is where I walk that line. You want our educators to be able to be innovative and not tie their hands. But if there's something different, parents, I think there was a concern, and I understand this is parental notification, making them just aware that this was something that this class was doing, which normally you want to say applaud for the innovation, but not realizing there was some backlash, and I understand why. So what that looks like would be interesting.
Eric?
I mean, don't forget, we had a presentation of some kids bringing up the fact that they invented a virtual reality game here. It was a third-party shooter game. They say it was analogous to Halo. I don't know if you remember when those kids were talking about that. They developed it, so they took something that, you know, is a negative and turned it into a positive by getting skills, commercial skills that they can use, for getting jobs. And these kids, I think they were in middle school, I thought, and they were creating a virtual reality program. So
I think that the concern that was brought up was elementary schools using virtual reality, and that, some of the people that are in the field saying, no, it's not appropriate for elementary. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just saying, but we did have some kids come and do a presentation earlier this year talking about, what they had done with virtual reality. So.
Caroline?
I'd like to hear from the union, because we do whatever we do in policy, and we should be at least, you can't enforce something with teachers that will then be brought up as challenging. So I think the union has to be involved in this, as to how they feel.
That's a good point, Caroline.
I have one more add-on, and I promise this is all, I swear, really quickly. The only other thing I found, and this may not make, and I don't recall the policies we'll be reviewing, but I know something to, kind of what Eric was saying is, there was a lot of feedback about, because we're moving towards digital textbooks, which I have my own opinion of, but I know that I don't, I don't have much say there at any point, but that if we don't have enough computers, and I'm not sure if it's a perception versus the reality, but it seemed that in the event there was no carts available in classes, they would defer to smartphones, which to me seems awfully hard to read. But so I don't know if that is something we could address, but that did come up more and more one of occasions, and even someone said if they're going to get rid of them, then they better supply us with enough computers for our students. So maybe a broader discussion, but it did elevate to there may be some concerns there, and what can we do? Because I certainly agree with that. If we're requiring digital textbooks and they have to access that online.
And I think anytime we have digital textbooks in a classroom, that we ought to also have the hard copy there, because we don't know there are some people that are all concerned about the screen time and what it might be doing to your eyes, or there might be some students that need that book in front of them.
And
because they would,
don't we?
Yeah.
Well, no, don't they require us to get the
hard copy?
When we buy the digital copy, they make us buy a hard copy too, and then we've been tossing them or something. I mean, I think we ought to have them available in the classroom, at least some of them.
Yeah, there are some textbooks that you have to buy the book to get the online access, but we do have some where we have the online access where we don't have the hard copy.
But if we have the book available, have it available for the students.
And there are some kids that I've heard that they're sitting at their kitchen table, parents are making them sit at the kitchen table, and they're telling them that they're looking at the book, but as soon as you turn around to watch Arrow, the kid's on YouTube, and your wife's yelling at you about you not watching your kid, and so I don't get to watch Arrow because I got to sit next to EJ.
That was about you?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, whoever that person is.
But you see, that's parental control.
That's right.
I know, and I got to sit, but I want to watch Arrow.
That's why I want parental, teachers, nobody wants to take
He's already taken the cell phone away, so. Okay, so is there anything else? Because we've now got to move on to our Novus agenda and go up on the dais and take care of that. If there are any reporters that need an interview, Dr. Kingsley is available to speak to this issue. Correct, Dr. Kingsley?
No, that's called Novus agenda. The e-agenda was the old one. Do you want me to go get the old PA one for you? I can do that for you. Richard, are you there? Okay, I'm going to put the speaker down at you, so they're going to hear you talking too. But they're moving to the dais so that we can actually do this, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
So this is like the new Eric agenda.
This is whatever you want, Eric.
Somebody call the Eric agenda.
So.
As soon as I got that caught on.
How you doing, Caroline? So Kathy, you have to sit there and run the meeting.
It's not the same. No, the sign is versus that soft tissue. Now, I'm very used to using Linda as a computer. I love it. Okay. Password is currently going to be password as of now. You're logging in your first yes.
So Brandon, tell me when everybody's logged in, okay?
Well, all of our board members are logged in. It's just a matter of
Getting Dr. Bowden. Okay. Well, Richard, I'm going to walk around. I'm going to go to the board members and I'm going to say if I don't know that. So we have the meetings started up, okay, and it should be on the board. Okay. So I'm going to start.
No, I gotta go back.
okay. Well, there's a line.
No, I gotta
go out there.
They're getting set up, so I want to show them what's going on. So once everybody's sat down.
Joe, you're so far away. Hey there. I'm very excited about this.
Check out 1, 2, 3. And this one too. So Richard, we're waiting for 2. I believe that we will have a small little break. But we've started the meeting. So while we're waiting for them, I want to let the rest of the board members know that the meeting has already started, and you can tell that the meeting's already started by up in the top left-hand corner where it says "Call to Order." It turned yellow. Okay. And that tells you where we're at a certain point. Now, because I wanted to show the voting first, what I did was, and Dr. Bowden, because you don't vote, unfortunately you don't see the screen that they see. You're seeing the agenda screen.
You're not supposed to
see that. Yeah, you're not supposed to see this at all. No, you can't see that. You're not allowed. So,
I'm not supposed to know how I'm voting.
so what's going to happen is, yeah. So I'm doing the voting during the call to order, just so that I can show you quickly how to do it. And Kathy has already turned on open voting. She saved the motion, because what you would do is, like on consent for agenda, Jane would move and have a first and a second, and then Kathy would put that in there real quick, and then she would click save motion. And that's when she can click open voting. And that's what she did, so that you have this up here right now. And in the other room where our people are running all the presenters, they can load the kiosk that you're going to see for what everybody votes. Grant, can you go in there and have that come up, please? So, right now, if you want to go ahead and vote for a call to order, go ahead and press either for, against, or abstain. Okay, now, when you click, whatever you click, don't click again. Okay? That's okay.
I confirmed that I wanted to
Well,
start.
that's okay, Bridget, because we can change that over there with Kathy. Kathy can get rid of your vote and then start again. But what we have right now is you have a canceled vote at the bottom, and if you click cancel vote right now, it will give you your 3 choices back, and you can change your vote. Okay? So now, everybody...
We won't be able to see how other people are voting.
Yes, you will. It's up on the screen right now. No. It's real time. So go ahead and click a vote. Everybody
She meant how others are voting at that time until all of those votes happen.
No, until all the votes are tabulated. You can't see unless you do this. You can see on the screen, big enough to see it, but it doesn't show up there to everybody until, like you got it right there, how everybody voted until she closes the vote.
Oh, I see. So even though I confirmed, it doesn't show up there until after the vote.
Until the voting's closed. Right. So she has to post the vote. So if everybody is done with your vote, click confirm.
Oh, that's right. Confirm?
Yes. Okay. And that confirms your vote. And so now she can close the voting.
And sign the decider.
Did you close the voting? Okay. Richard, it didn't show up there. I thought we had the right kiosk number. I'm sorry about that, but you will. It shows up on the screen, but
well, I can't see that.
There it is.
It's actually a place to get it.
No, if they have to fix
you have the right kiosk and that's the wrong number. No, it shows that's okay. So this was good to show you why we have to be careful when we start this. When we started, this kiosk right here that you see up here that just showed the votes, okay? That shows the votes, but there's a certain number for each meeting. And we practiced ahead of time, and we had a different meeting number in the kiosk instead of the one we were supposed to have. So when we start the meeting, every time Brandon will pull up the meeting, and he will pull the number, and he will put it in there, and we'll do the kiosk from there. So each one. So now, there is a really cool thing, and I don't know whether your thing's on right here or not, but you hit presenter, right? You can see the vote live and in person.
So what about unscheduled vote? You're going to set votes up for each item that require a vote?
Well, there's going to be, but then there's a voice vote over there on the.
So do that. There's no way to insert an unscheduled vote.
So, Richard, can we insert a vote while the meeting's going on that they can vote with the computer instead of just a vote, roll call vote?
Absolutely. So if you want to add a vote, all you have to do is go to that the item and create that motion.
What is an unscheduled?
It's unscheduled. Well, if you're talking about it, so that makes sense, Richard. So if you're talking about cell phones, just since you were talking about cell phones, if you wanted to add a motion right there, you would ask Kathy, and Kathy would click add motion in where that item's at, and then it would automatically create the motion.
Kathy knows how to do that?
I just found the button.
Yeah,
she does. Well, and that's the nice thing. We have a couple weeks to make sure, like you just asked a question. That's what this is all about. Cool. So,
but I thought, under sunshine laws, we aren't supposed to vote on something that hasn't been advertised.
There's nothing in statute.
I didn't say in statute, but it talked about that, that if it's not on the agenda and the public doesn't know about it, that we're supposed to be, things that we're going to be voting on are supposed to be on the agenda so that, and the public can talk about it.
That's how we did the board master training. You go out voting to go to board master training, you get a workshop, and you want to give them
Sunshine law just require that you allow public comment. Is it best practice?
All right, so we allow, all right.
So it's always been Art's advice that if you have an unscheduled vote, that you then allow public comment on that specific item for those that are in attendance.
So as the meeting goes along, you'll notice that Kathy has it up yellow up at the top, and then she continues to click all the way down. Now on the consent agenda, there is a test item. There you go. So now, Mr. Robinson is way ahead here. So now what he wants to do is he wants to write notes. Now this is the basic. So if you click view notes, you can type your notes in there.
No.
But then people can hear me.
There are private notes in there.
Joe, do I say anything worth listening to?
I think anything we do in this room is public.
Well, it's going to be in there. It's your notes that you want to talk about during the meeting, and they do get attached to the document for your, and they're your private notes.
Am I allowed to underline,
something,
cross out?
No.
No?
No. You can add your notes that you want to talk about in there, then you know what
But I can't highlight anything or?
No, you can't annotate on that document. But you can put any note that you want in there about the document.
So before the board meeting starts, we can go in and...
You will have, after they do executive director review and she posts it, and it'll be made available.
They're taking the
for
cameras down.
Is it available just for the board member, or does it become a public record if somebody requests it?
No, there are separate check boxes, one that says just board, and then there's public. So it won't be public until you have had a chance to review it and put your notes in and talk about it. And then when you say it's okay to go public, then Kathy can press public, and then it becomes public at that point.
If you commit your thoughts to writing,
so
they are public records.
It's a public record, but does that mean it's on the web? People have to ask to get it public, or it's out there?
No, they can't. They cannot. So the question is, yes, that whatever you put in as a note is public record, but no, they can't see it.
Okay.
Okay? So no, they can't see it. They would have to ask you if you had any notes in there for us to pull it back. Okay?
So maybe they'll just
and I noticed
do
that
as a regular
Shirley has
basis.
all that up. So the whole meeting, that's basically the way the software works.
All right, got it.
And you go right through it. It's all the way to the end.
You can go in and
you
can go into items and
I go to my retreat meeting.
So up in the top left-hand corner, it says meetings. If you click that down arrow next to meetings, right here, that will, right above.
Let you change meetings.
Right here. It'll let you change, yeah, right there. Just click on that. That'll give you any open meeting. Now, normally you only have one meeting open at a time. So go ahead and click save and exit. Click save and exit right there. Okay, now go up there and click on where it says board meetings.
I'm trying to click on today, it won't do it.
Okay. And you see how we were practicing with that one.
Because the retreat here.
That meeting you could open.
Interview me between one.
Right. But that doesn't mean that, see, and where they're gray, that's a meeting that has not been published yet. It is just a draft.
Go ahead.
It hasn't been set. So you can't click on anything that's gray. Only thing, anything that's black and bold.
I can't click on today's board meeting.
No, you can't because it's grayed out. This one right here is the 1/21/2020. This one's like in a year, is at the end of the year. That's September. But you can't click on any one that's grayed out because it hasn't been pushed to the minutes, okay? And there's also on here, if you want to, you can view the agenda, you can view the minutes on there, but that's basically it. And that's pretty simple, isn't it? Yep. And do you like how big you can, hey, Mr. Robinson, where are you at? You can't leave yet, sir.
I have a meeting with the guy from the retreat.
That's good, but do you like how big the picture is up there? Do you like how big the picture is up there?
Beautiful.
Thank you very much. That's just for you. That was just for you,
I don't think I know
sir.
what to do. So how do you get to the, okay, so we got the agenda up. So we're scrolling down. Now we're ready for the consent agenda. How do we get that screen up to vote?
You're not going to pull up the screen.
Kathy's
Kathy's going to do that.
Oh, that was what I was
You don't have
worried
to do anything. Kathy's going to do that.
Oh my goodness, Kathy, you're now in charge.
She's going to get down there and you're going to say, I need do I have a motion for the consent agenda? Somebody's going to first it, somebody's going to second it, she's going to pop it in there real quick.
And voila, we
then she's
vote
gonna
and
click,
go.
yes, you're going to click
And all
save
we
and
do
open.
is vote and confirm.
That's correct.
I like that a lot.
That's much
Because
easier.
we were scrolling from page to page and stuff, so that
Absolutely. Yep. And see, as she's down on approval of consent agenda, see, and as you go down, it'll be yellow wherever she's at. But if
So
you click on
Brandon will
something-
set this up every day. Kathy will be in control, and we'll just vote and make minimal.
Yes, ma'am.
Have minimal things to do. When we review it, we can add notes to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Appropriately, should
Were
we
you
choose to
talking to
do
me?
so.
Yes, ma'am.
They
Sure.
become public after we have our meeting and have discussed it publicly at the board meeting. Kathy will make it public,
Right.
and we're done.
And you're done.
Like it.
And the notes that you put on it that are.
Are you coming to lunch
Yes.
with us? I mean, we're going together
Those are saved
someplace for
behind
lunch?
the scene.
Yes,
They just- the public-
until this meeting.
And the public doesn't see those.
Okay.
Okay?
But they will after this meeting.
No.
They never will.
They never see them
Okay.
unless they know they're there and they request them.
Okay.
I don't know. Are we going somewhere to lunch?
So, and so if you just click this.
I don't know why. I mean, I just.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions? Dr. Bowden? You were very good at some
Well,
of
I
the
might
questions.
have
Thank
this
you very much.
afternoon if I.
I've asked
screen
my
you up.
one good
Hell,
question for the day.
Kathy, if I screen, you two better be available
So
this afternoon.
I
If I
believe
hadn't-
that is it. We look very good. Bridget?
I'm very excited about this.
Thank you. And I do want to let you know that Richard, who I have Richard on the phone. Richard, say hello to the board, please.
Hello, Richard.
Richard's mic is muted.
Richard, you still there? There you go.
Good.
Hello, Richard.
Good. So we spent, and I know that you have been anxiously with bated breath and waiting for this. It's been a long process to make it.
Oh, that's even worse.
Don't support that cell phone ban.
Who is it?
Reagan Fox.
So it took
He's-
an extremely long time to make sure a lot of facts up. And I've got this gentleman here.
James.
This is more. Yes. How's it going?
He's like, wait, I just walked into the room and people are talking about me.
We got everybody here now. So anyways, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Joe, you'll be around too, won't you?
Yes, and Richard, thank you very much.
So we exit out?
I'm gonna let you.
That's it?
You too. Bye-bye.
Quietly.
That's it?
Yes, we are adjourned for lunch. We'll meet back for the board meeting at 3 o'clock.
So I came up, I thought it was.